Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to see a full room. That means this community is engaged. New faces, old faces, regular faces, and some visitors alike. So we always start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, so could you please rise? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a okay. We always start our meetings with we have our Code Enforcement Bureau in the back of the room. Go over this really quickly. Johnny, Chief Barrero, Acting Chief Barrero, could you come forward? And Mr. Murdaco, could you please come forward as the night shift supervisor? We don't have Suffolk County in the house. Officer Casey. Okay. We love Officer Casey. It's always good to have Suffolk County police in the house. And then we have our school district by law. Is it by law? Yes. That you have to come and present the budget to us? You do it because you love us. Oh, okay. And then we have a public hearing. And so with Acting Chief Barrero at the mic, if anybody has any questions or concerns with respect to public safety, they can ask Chief Barrero, make a complaint, take a comment, anything. Are there any?
Any questions you have, just holler. Anyway, just to keep them, yes, ma'am.
You have to, please, if you could, yeah, I'm sorry, point of order. You have to come and use the microphone. I apologize for that, but we are live streaming on Facebook. This way everybody can hear the comments. YouTube, sorry. And make sure, Stella, you touch the green button. There you go, honey.
My name is Stella Cohen. I live at 111 Scraggy Hill Road, directly opposite the elementary school. We have witnessed any number of children on motorized scooters zipping up and down Scraggy Hill Road at all times of the day, no helmets. They probably go as fast as a car, although the speed limit on that road is 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
They go faster. Is there any way we could have some sort of supervision on that road? Somebody to tell these kids that they're taking their lives in their hands?
Yeah, those motorized bikes are becoming a problem.
Johnny, into the microphone. Johnny, could you speak? Thank you,
honey.
honey.
Don't need plates or nothing. They go to 30 miles an hour. It's a problem.
Yep.
It's going to be an accident waiting to happen.
It is.
But a lot of getting those motorized bikes and they're going down the street. Unfortunately, Suffolk can't do nothing. We can't do nothing.
It's not like dangerous driving.
They should be wearing helmets.
Negligence or
Yeah, they should be wearing
jaywalking?
helmets. Yeah, but there's really no law. They don't have to have plates or nothing.
Okay,
I think it's
well,
going to get out of hand. You're absolutely right.
I think so too. So
gonna
anybody
be-
who has kids who have those motorized scooters, maybe ask
We can
them not
insist
to.
on helmets. Tell them to slow down. If it becomes that bad, call us.
Okay.
You see a lot that time.
Yeah.
Call
Barbara?
them. We'll come down. Talk to
Especially
them.
opposite the school.
What we could really do.
Okay, thank you.
Stella, could you do me a favor? Because Barbara's not here. Brian, could you take her name and number? Because if you miss Officer Casey tonight, like for her to talk to you from a Suffolk County perspective, I think Legislator Hahn has some new legislation before Suffolk County about the requirement for wearing helmets on the motorized scooters. So, but we can update you on that if we hear more.
And are motorized scooters, I'm sorry to interrupt, are motorized scooters not subject to the speed limit?
No. They don't need plates or anything. It's a crazy law, I know.
That would be DMV, New York State law.
We already
can check
inquired
with
Suffolk
Senator
about
Palumbo.
that. There's nothing they could do. Unless they're breaking the law, we can't do much. They got to ride on the right side of the street. They came on the other side of the street. They got to follow the law. But they do go 30 miles an hour.
Would you like to make a public comment? Yeah. Come on up.
My name is Gary Maresca. I live at 106 Cooper Court. Yep. Just a question with that, okay? I'm an avid ATV rider. I have insurance and a license plate. Why are ATVs illegal?
Oh,
But-
ATVs, that's
but-
different.
But motorcycles go haphazard.
It's not a motorcycle. It's a motorbike.
Whatever you want to call it.
They got
So
a little motor on it. They fly. But it's something new, and they don't need plates. which I'm against. They should have something. But they don't need place or nothing. It's
So
coming
again,
down
this
the
is
pike.
this is DMV, New York State, Suffolk County. So if you want to put your name and number on the record here, we can have
Sure.
Officer Casey get back to
I
you as
totally
well.
agree with you, though. I totally agree with you.
So just to clarify, code enforcement has no jurisdiction over speeding or moving vehicles. Yes, Suzette.
Hi, my name is Suzette Smuckler. I live at 22 Loretta Gate for the past 44 plus years. I'm here on behalf of probably more than this, but 34 homes in the area that's Chuck Court and Loretta Gate. And I think, Mayor, I'm going to be asking for your intervention because a number of your trustees have already tried to help me, as well as the attorney, who I wouldn't be able to identify. I guess it's Mr. Harris. The short point is that if you take a ride, and I will be asking you to do that, into the Chuck Court Loretta Gate area, where Loretta Gate comes out and intersects with North Country Road, is a death trap. Many of the people, if not most of the people in that area, do not make a left turn due to the hazard. When they get there, they make a right turn, which isn't so safe anymore either. And it's a blind when you're coming east to west on North Country Road.
Mm-hmm.
And I know none of you have any jurisdiction over cops and speeding tickets, but this is much more than that, in that I am my husband and I, 44-year resident. When we first moved in, this wasn't an issue, in part due to trees, growth, and other things. Now, I began this mission, so to speak, by contacting Trustee Shepro, who kindly forwarded me to Trustee Snaden, both of whom have been terrific, getting back to me in reasonable times. But as the story has progressed, we went from our local buildings and roads to taking a look at it, because we had some suggestions ourselves, to there will be a delay because the town of Brookhaven will be involved. And then to some degree, legal. And if I'm saying this wrong to either of you, you can feel free to correct me. This looks like it's becoming, for me, it's becoming a bureaucratic nightmare over a simple safety piece. So I would ask any of the trustees, anybody else, to take a ride in that area and try to make a left without slamming on your brakes, or the person driving east to west slamming on, and then it's gotten pretty tricky even to make the right. So whatever bureaucratic has to be gotten through, I'm sure you have colleagues in the town of Brookhaven. Perhaps you could intervene for us, and we're not only asking for the 34 homes, because this is a disaster waiting to happen, whoever's driving on North Country
Right.
Road. Thank you for listening, and
You're
thank
welcome.
you, Trustee Shepro, Trustee Snape.
You're welcome, Suzette. Brian, we'll talk about that afterwards.
Do you want me to update on, no?
Unless it's constructive.
Well, it's what we've done so far and where we are,
Okay,
if you want.
sure.
So after being contacted, I went out there to that intersection with Steve Gallagher, our superintendent of DPW, and we looked at what the problem is. It was his conclusion that the main problem was the line of sight to the left. You have a curve that comes around a slight hill, and then you have your street that comes out there, Loretta Gate. When you look to the left, when you stop at the stop sign, your view is blocked by numerous large trees and brush, and somebody had been dumping in that area, so there was a pileup of that debris. When we discussed taking down those trees to open up the line of sight, that's when the attorney got involved, because he, being an attorney, yes, but he's also the head of our building and planning department, and was able to determine for us who owns that property. You know, nobody in this room or anybody would like the village of Port Jefferson to come down and cut a tree on your property when it belongs to you and not the village. So when we found out it was the town of Brookhaven that owns that property, that's when that, as you call it, bureaucratic process had to begin. We can't, and Brian can help me with this, that we can't just go and cut trees or do anything on their property.
Yeah. I don't want to get into the weeds on this, no pun intended.
I'll get into the weeds in that it's your plaque. One of these things that confuse me about whose property what is and who has control, if you drive along there, there's no problem seeing "Welcome to the Village of Port Jefferson" with the mayor being you and who the trustees are. So I don't understand why that piece of property, there's no blurring of who has responsibility for it. There are a number of other signs, but that's the most obvious. So again, I think without getting into the weeds, it's getting a little overly bureaucratic on a simple in the sense that it's an obvious.
We'll get to the bottom
And
of it.
I'd like to add one more thing. I started this, let's say, 6 months ago. This gets progressively worse as the trees have full leaves. It is the least dangerous in the dead of winter. And thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you, Suzette. Any other, do we have Suffolk County in the house yet? No? Okay. Any other comments for code concerning public safety?
I just want to tell them what's going on. We have a lot of patrols in the residential area. A lot of cars are being left open. We had a complaint the other night up by the golf course. You got to lock your cars, please. There's a lot of scams going on, very big right now. Don't give anybody any information. They come to your door, don't answer anybody. Call the person's company. Some of the patrols with Suffolk County B will be starting soon. We'll have Suffolk County with us through the summer. Our plainclothes detail has been very busy. They patrol uptown, downtown. We have a plainclothes unit. They've been busy. Kids on the bikes is becoming a problem. We're going to try to control that. Bike patrols, Memorial Day, will start up again with our bike patrol, just so you know what's going on. You know, any more questions I can answer? No? Okay. Jimmy?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jimmy Rodalco. I'm the Chief of Patrol at the department. I will be focusing mainly on the department protocols, definitely the plainclothes unit, as John said, with the uptown area, the downtown area, any disorderly conduct that's going on. The bikes will be definitely a main focus as the weather gets warmer. They're in the middle of the road. They're all over the place. We've issued a policy to address that immediately, and some of the congregation on some of the busiest streets have become a hot spot, so we've been focusing on that. I just got into the position, and I'm looking, I think things will go in a great direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Can I
Okay.
just make forget if this is code or Suffolk PD, who are starting to use the decibel meter at one point, and then have another officer give a ticket sort of down the hill, say? Is that you folks, or is it for noise,
So, Jimmy,
for
I think
noisy
what
vehicles?
Rebecca's referring to, I had a conversation with her about how if you guys observe and hear the loud mufflers, motorcycles, that you cannot pursue that vehicle or pull them over like a Suffolk police officer can, but if they then park in a parking lot, can you explain that?
So that's something that we're addressing now. A lot of the issues are the train horns that individuals are putting in their cars. They'll come downtown, they'll hit the horn, it scares everyone. Normally they'll park, and that's when we'll have interaction with them, and they would be issued an FAT.
Thank you. And I just wanted to recognize that, and thank you. Many of our residents have, noticed the increasing noise from whether it's these horns or the mufflers, the modified vehicles. So, thank you for starting to address that. I think once word gets out that Port Jeff is addressing this with tickets, that hopefully they stop doing it here and we have a calmer community. Yeah.
Guys, you got to use the microphone if you're going to comment. Lauren, you have a
Okay,
question or comment from Officer Mondaco?
Sure. While you're here, if you could just give us an update on the concert that was held at the brewery on, I think it got shut down early.
Friday night?
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually worked that night. I was in plainclothes. Several complaints came in for the volume of the concert. I believe in the code, as of Friday's date, anything past 9 p.m. on a certain decibel level, it had to be lowered. Myself and another officer approached the owner, talked to him on the side. We told him it was near 9 o'clock, and we responded to another call. 9:30, we went back, and they were done.
Is it
I also-
because if it was a,
Also, point of order, Michael needs to submit his permit to be allowed to have outdoor concerts on village-owned, okay. So remind our friend at the brewery that he needs a permit
me
from
to
the
do
board.
that?
No, the
Oh,
clerk is doing
Barbara,
that.
okay, okay.
So we did address that on Friday night.
All right, and is it a Friday? Is it a weeknight? Is it because it's a weeknight, or do weekends have a different time limitation than
I believe,
nights?
and I don't want to, I don't have the code in front of me, but I believe during this time of year, it's up until 9 o'clock. I believe after Memorial Day, it's up to 11 o'clock.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Officer Medarco and Acting Chief Barrero. Okay, we're going to go right into the school district to present their budget for us. Sean does a tap dance every year. We appreciate our school district. We know that they're doing a great job with our kids and the resources that they have, and I appreciate the partnership we have and for your willingness to be here.
Yes. So, good evening, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jessica Schmittam. I am the Superintendent of Schools in Port Jefferson. And every year, as part of what we call our Budget Roadshow and our community engagement, we are welcomed by the village to come and share our plans for the upcoming school budget. And so all of this information is on our website, on all our tabs on our website, and we do have an upcoming bond hearing and budget hearing, which is on May 9th, and that's always part of our regular budget and bond process. And the person behind the scenes who does most of the finance and work in our school district is our Deputy Superintendent, Mr. Sean Lester, and he's here to take you through the nitty-gritty and some of the numbers on this.
Sure. Thank you to the village for having us. Okay, so we're going to start out first with where we're at in the glide path. We will be entering year 6 of the glide path with LIPA. LIPA entered into an agreement with the town of Brookhaven, as far as the school district is concerned, for a 50% reduction in assessed value. So we are now beginning to hit the greater steps or the greater steepness of the steps to reach that 50% reduction by the end of 26-27. So from the top end, our budget, this year's budget is $46.1 million, increasing to $47 million, an increase of about $950,000, which is a 2% increase, 2.07% budget-to-budget increase. Now we also have the tax levy. The tax levy is the portion of the budget that we asked the residents to fund. That will be an increase from 38.5 to 39.7, a $764,000 increase at 1.98%. These are the assumptions that we use for our budget, both the known and the unknown. Our medical insurance, as usual, is increasing by about 10%. Our liability insurance increased by 20%, which is unusual. Our retirement system contribution is staying approximately flat. Our utilities are going up by 4%. Our transportation by 4%, and so on. We do have 2 staff retirements this year that have been announced, one of our nurses and one of our paraprofessionals. What is unknown right now is the final state aid, even though we've been told that the governor's budget has been agreed to in principle. We're not expecting a great increase. We think the school aid numbers have been finalized in the legislative budget. And then our medical insurance, we are only given rates for the calendar year, not for the budget year. This is a breakout quickly by department. I'll just hit the bigger increases. We have $140,000 increase in the operation, maintenance, and plant. That's primarily utilities and supplies. With supply chain costs, we have the unallocated interest I mentioned. Ooh, let me go back. There we go. No harm, no foul. This is our instructional program. Most of these raises are driven by our instructional program and our staffing, and those salaries are dictated by our collective bargaining agreements. And then we have our transportation and benefits. We're trying to hold the line on benefits. will draw, attention that we are keeping the number down overall, and that if you look at our transfer to other funds, that's made up of 3 transfers: a small transfer to the school cafeteria fund, a small transfer to our special aid fund, and a large transfer to our capital construction fund. This is a breakout by component, and it's just from year to year. We're pretty much the same: 10% in our administrative component, 10% in our capital component, and 80% in our program component. This is our staffing year to year. The change reflects change from budget to budget. When we do the budget, it's people in the seat as of December, with small changes to reflect on either student enrollment or student choice. So student choice is at the high school, middle school, what classes they sign up dictate for what staffing we will need as far as teachers. So we have a small decrease from budget to budget of 0.6 in the teachers. It's actually a 2.6 because we hired 2 teachers throughout the year to conform with regulations for special ed and English as a second language. So we had to add 2 teachers this year, but overall we'll be reducing 2.6 year to year. We are reducing our aides and assistants by 3. That is because we, for a number of years, had students tuitioned in from the Mount Sinai School District. They announced that after a long period, they're looking to bring their students back to their own school and have their own program. So as a result, there's less need for those aides. Our office staff is basically flat, as is our administrative staff, supervisor staff, and custodial, security, and ground staff. Overall, a reduction of 3.1. This real quick, we like to list 5 years worth of capital projects, because capital projects, even though they're approved, they sometimes don't reach maturity or finalization for a year or 2. That is because first the community votes on them, then we have to submit them to the state for approval. That could take anywhere from 6 to 9 months. Then we bid out the projects, we select the bidders, and usually the construction happens the following summer. So most of the 22-23 projects literally were just approved last week by New York State. For 23-24, we are looking to start a new approach. So seeing that the difficulty and financial constraints of going out for a bond, we want to include more money in our capital appropriation each year, and we want to address 3 different areas. One being infrastructure, and that's the common one. That's kind of repairing and replacing old and outdated infrastructure. The second is health and safety and security, and the third is instructional. So instructional is not so much that the space is, or the walls, or the floors are in need of repair. It's in need of upgrades of certain things like science labs, computer labs, and in this case, the consumer and science classroom. So for this upcoming year, we have 5 projects. First is an ADA bathroom in the elementary APR room. We use that APR room also as a cafeteria. Right now, there is no bathroom that is within close distance for the students to use during their lunch break, so we're going to install a bathroom there. The second item is a rear boundary fence. So the property that borders the apartments, we look to put up a fence with 2 gates to just help secure it throughout the school day. Third is a stop arm booth at the high school, middle school, so it would be down by the tennis courts. It would be a unmanned booth for the most part. It would have a swipe card access for faculty and staff. It would be open in the mornings and in the afternoons at arrival and dismissal, but for visitors, there would be a camera and a microphone so they could communicate with security to be granted access to the building. One of the reasons we're doing that is because on a lot of the maps and a lot of the MapQuests and things like Waze, it's listed as a street. So we actually have a high degree of traffic through there for people that don't know the Port Jeff area, to include sometimes emergency vehicles and vehicles in emergency chase. Next is to redo the family and consumer science room. For people my age and above, that would be the home ec room. And finally, we want to start phase 1 of replacing windows at the high school. Some of them go back to the 80s, and they're not in great shape, and they're not any energy efficient anymore. I just talked about expenses. In the school district, we have two budgets, an expense budget and a revenue budget, and they have to meet. So we start with the budget of $47.1 million. Then we have our state aid. Our state aid increased a whopping $23,000. Now, we have a very small of aid here in Port Jefferson, about $3.9 million. It's a two-edged sword. When there's a big increase, we don't get that much, but when there's a big decrease, we don't get cut that much. So it goes back and forth. Then I have what's called the local or miscellaneous revenues. We have tuition. As I mentioned, we're seeing a drop-off from the Mount Sinai School District, so we're seeing a decrease there of $385,000. Interest income, due to increased rates and leveraging some CD groups that we've been able to join with other schools, we've been able to increase our return. So we're able to increase our estimated rate of return from $30,000 to $300,000 for next year. We have our rentals. So the primary rental is Spring Street that we rent out to BOCES. But seeing that we are going to have a gap in our revenue budget, I give 100% credit to Ms. Schmatan because she reached out to BOCES, and we have some empty classrooms in the elementary school. They were looking for some classrooms for some of their programs. So we are going to be renting out 4 classrooms, 2 in the short term and 2 in the long term for a total of 4, and 2 offices, and that'll bring in an additional $100,000 in revenue each year. Then we have our different pilots, our payment in lieu of taxes. That's where organizations are not subject to the tax rate, but to a predetermined payment schedule. The biggest one is our peaker plant, and then we have our 4 different apartment complexes going up. True miscellaneous, that's everything from field trips to lost book fines, and then our use of reserves. So to circle back, we have our starting budget of $47.1 million, subtract out our state aid of 3.9, subtract out our local revenues, would also happen to 3.9, and we're left with our tax levy of 39.7, which is the 1.98% I described. This is a financial model. It's a little convoluted, but it proves everything out, and it's a 9-year look to include the LIPA ramp down. All this information is posted on the website, both the presentation and these financial models. We break down the model a little more. So we take the tax rate and we apply it to 5 different assessed values because there is no average in Port Jefferson. We have a wide range of property values from Belterre down to some of the smaller historic homes. So the $12,500 would be Belterre. The assessed value of $1,800 would be one of those smaller homes. And say a $5,000 assessed value would be Jefferson Landing, the homes over there. So it just kind of gives a look at what those taxes would be for a given year. Federal stimulus and state aid. So this is having to do with COVID. So there's a lot of news out there how billions were allocated for COVID, and they were. They were all hard-coded, meaning you didn't apply for them. You were told what your allocation was, and then you filled out a budget plan for it. Ours amounted to approximately $460,000. We applied for every penny, and we've been spending every penny. Unfortunately, due to the size of our district and the perceived wealth of our district, we don't receive the 40 to 50 million that some other school districts did, and are actually having trouble spending. I wish I was in their shoes. This is just the facts behind the budget and bond vote. It's on May 16th. It's at the high school. Eligibility is a citizen, 18 years or older, and a resident of the Port Jefferson School District for 30 days or prior. And those are the 2 propositions to vote upon. One is the budget, and the second will be the bond, which I'll cover. So speaking of the bond, we did have a bond in December that was approximately $23 million plus a second proposition for $2 million. Working with the board and administration, we scaled that down to a $15.9 million bond with 4 items. The first is heating and cooling. At the high school, the heating and cooling system is steam and goes back to the 20s and is literally, in some cases, yes, falling apart in your hands. So it's time to replace it. That's about $3.9 million. The second one is the music room portable and the music spaces. So we do use a musical portable out in the parking lot, which I'm reliably informed that Tom Meehan served detention in the 60s. So it's past its useful life. So the plan is to demolish that entirely, move inside, We would remodel our existing orchestra and band space, and then take existing space in our auditorium and remodel that as well for one practice room and one music classroom. And that's $3.4 million. The third item is what we call the lower U. So around the gymnasium that the middle school and high school share, there's a bunch of locker rooms, the nurse's office, the trainer's office, team rooms, and an additional athletic room. We would look to redo all of those, taking into consideration that most of those things are from the 50s, both the wear and tear on those items and also the size of those items. We no longer need as big a locker rooms because our student body is smaller. Also, it is not currently in vogue to have group showers, rather to remodel those into stall showers and similar. So we remodel all of those rooms at a cost of about $6.2 million. And the final item is on the upper part of the gymnasium, there's a team space and a locker room that's been used for football and lacrosse. We would look to make that into a maker space and tech ed space. So we'd relocate what classes we have going on in the tech ed building, therefore moving everyone into one building and not having to cross the parking lot or go up the stairs, both risking a hazard with delivery vehicles and with bad weather. That's $2.4 million. So overall, the proposition is $15.9 million. This is the same type of model that I had before. One for just the budget and one for the actual bond. Break it down further. This is additional annual, monthly, and daily taxes. For this slide is just for the budget, what you would see in increases, and this factors in the LIPA reassessment. So this is just for the budget, and this slide is for the bond proposition. Once again, laying it out by annual, monthly, and daily, so everyone can have an estimate of what the bond impact would be to them. Lastly, this is the debt schedule that is provided by our bond consultants that use estimates from what's currently going on. So it would be a 15-year bond, borrowed at 4.5%. 87% is being aidable of the project, meaning what's eligible for state aid. We hope to have 100, but to be conservative, we'll say 87%. Our building aid ratio is 22.5%, meaning of every dollar we spend, we get 22.5% of that back, or 22.5 cents, spread over 15 years. And there's an amortization rate of the interest, because we receive aid not only on the principal, but on the interest as well. And then there's a 2.25% amortization done as an estimate each year. And that was in a very quick nutshell.
So all these slides are available on the district site.
Yes.
And the last two, if you could go back to the last two schedules again, that's the one before. Those are the, everybody wants to know, what does this mean to me?
Yes.
So if you have an idea of your assessed valuation, 12.5 would be a beautiful new contemporary 5,000 square foot. That would be an increase of approximately $135 a year, and all the way down to maybe a historic.
Sorry.
What?
I'll have to correct you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
$135 a month.
A month. Oh, I apologize. A month, and down to the more historic, it's $17.35. So you got to find yourself on the spectrum. That's for the bond and budget, or is that combined?
No. It's one of each. So one is for the first one is for just the budget.
Okay.
So what your taxes will be, what you'll see is an increase, and this is what you would see in an increase for the bond. So if you wanted to add the two, if both propositions passed.
Okay. So again, people can, if you want to know what does this mean to me, you can go up and go to these exhibits on your website and check it out. I have one question for you on the stop arm booth. That's hard for a New Englander to say. Currently, that's a one-way. So if you're not allowing somebody through the gate because they're, for whatever reason,
Right.
they making a roundabout and going out that one way?
We might, we'll have to discuss that, but
Yeah, at the end of the drive is actually a double way, if you know where the tennis courts are,
Mm-hmm.
because people pull into there all the time. But as soon as you get just right past the tennis courts, it's a one-way. So we do allow cars right now to make a small U-turn in that little side area that's by the tennis courts, because there's enough room for them to spin around. But that's where that will be right there. And there is a gate at the end of the drive on the other side where the buses go out of onto Old Post.
Right.
So it's blocked, it would be blocked in both ways.
Right, but we can anticipate, we don't normally see traffic coming out of the driveway onto the CVS intersection, Carolina.
Do occasionally,
Okay.
even though they're not, we try to encourage them not to, but we do see cars making a small
Okay,
U-turn in
well,
that.
we
Yes.
would like to really kind of connect with you a little bit
Yes.
more about what
that looks like.
what
Yes.
more impact that might have.
Absolutely.
Okay. So first, I don't know, maybe you other people have been discussing
And
it.
we've discussed
Okay.
with the district safety committee and things like that, yeah.
Okay, good. Are there any other questions from the board members? I applaud you guys for trying to stay on top of renovating these buildings from heating systems 1920 and facilities from 1950, and I know it's been tough, so hopefully the community will support you in this round.
We hope so.
Yeah.
And again, we listened and we pared it down. It may not be as small as what people would have liked to have, but we really feel like this will get us ahead and we won't have to come to you multiple times. That's our goal right now, is to really build it into the budget. And that's what you saw Mr. Lester talking about earlier, about the capital lines, so that we're not asking for borrowing again and again. Just get us ahead to where we need to bring these things up, bring the students inside, health and safety most critical, and then we'll work on the instructional spaces over time. We tried to take out anything that we could do over time with capital reserves and with line item budgets in the future. That was really our goal, listening to the community. So hopefully now if we can get this one going and move forward in other ways without having to come out, and we understand it's an impact to the taxpayer, so we don't want to have to do that multiple times.
Thank you. I'll ask if there's any board members that have
Yeah, I have
comments
a-
before we open it.
I have a question.
That's
Sure.
okay.
No, you're okay. I get to hide back here.
You're in the bad spot.
No, I'm in, or the best one. I don't know. So I had a question about you're looking at putting a new roof on, and then you're looking at updating the heating and cooling. We brought in a company, Johnson Controls. There's multiple companies that do project assessment like this to analyze all the buildings, all the property, and see if there's a way to, for instance, add solar to offset the costs. I know in Patchogue they were able to have a lot of projects done at either no cost to taxpayers or much reduced costs because they're bringing in income by utilizing the flat roofs. Is this something that you've looked into?
Sure. Yeah, we actually did an energy performance contract with Johnson Controls 3 to 5 years ago. So that has to be, the way it's done is an 18-year payback. And so, yes, it is as a break even over 18 years. And they identified and we followed up with every single item that we could.
Yeah.
The only thing that we did not follow through on was some of the solar panels because there has to be a new roof. And at the time when we did it, there was not a new roof at the time. So, but yes, we have gone forward, and it was just south of $2 million that we did.
Great. That got covered essentially by
Yes.
the
Well,
wonderful.
it'll be covered over time, yes.
Sure, sure. And I appreciate hearing that. Is following up with them for the solar now that the new roof is going on something that you'd be interested in?
Well, I think what we've discovered too is some of the paybacks for municipalities are much different than the paybacks for the homeowner, right? The buybacks and the tax credits and things like that for solar. So not only do you have to have the new roof, but you have to have a certain amount of, like he said, the 18-year payback. It has to show in time. So we absolutely have been engaged within Johnson Controls and saying if there's anything additional with a reassessment, now that we have new roofs, we would absolutely do that, yeah. We're in contact with them all the time because they are one of our vendors.
Right
Great.
now, the payback on solar is 22 to 27. So sometimes you blend that with the other projects to get the average down to 18. But now that we're just left with the solar, the payback is too high.
Sure. Got it. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board before we open it to the public? This presentation by the school on their proposed budget. Any questions, concerns? Yes, Ms. Mason. You have to come forward, Molly, and hit the green button so you can. It's on. Okay, thank you.
I can't really see the board. I can't really see the
Can you please-
information on there because of the angle. Molly Mason, Molly M-O-L-L-Y, Mason M-A-S-O-N. 24. Why do you have to give your address? What? Well, I don't think everybody I live in for the village of Port Jefferson for 37 years. My
It's
question-
Waterview Drive. We can get you the address later if she doesn't want to
I just
comply.
don't want to. So I can't really see the screen from my angle. Is the locker room still in this new plan? The locker room, the changing room?
I'm sorry, I just want
Yeah,
to make sure I'm
I
clarifying. You're
think
talking about the
it's-
bond
For the bond, yeah.
for Proposition 2?
Yeah. Is it still there?
Yes.
And how much is that going to be? How much is that going to
So
be?
the locker rooms, which are inclusive of the team rooms, the well-fit room,
right.
the trainers,
Yeah.
the nurse's office, and all the storage space athletic trainer who's currently in a closet right now,
Uh-huh.
that's $6.1 million, yes.
I think it's really extensive. How many kids do you have in high school sports programs?
Well, I have all of my students in the middle school, high school who participate in physical education.
And how about the teams? Do they use that same space?
No, we're moving that space. So we're repurposing. Currently upstairs, and I'd be happy to give you a tour if you'd like to see it.
I've seen it many times.
Okay, so you've seen upstairs too, where the old locker room is, where it's usually football and
Yeah.
boys lacrosse? Okay.
You
So-
mean the weight room, what used to be the weight training area?
Nope, the weight training room is the fitness center, which
Oh,
is in
yeah.
the front of the building.
Right, okay.
The back of the building is actually our team rooms, it's called. It's kind of with the stairs to the track area
Right.
is where those long, it's a long area that's above the gymnasium, actually. So that's going to be repurposed
Uh-huh.
for technology education and
Right,
art
right.
to come
Yeah,
inside.
I know that. part
Right,
of
so
the
that's,
building.
so those rooms that are up there currently, which is our boys' team room, is going to be moved downstairs. So that is one area. So our middle school boys use that, our high school boys use that for teams, as well as our girls will now have an equal space downstairs as well. And our girls have never had an equal space.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It just like seems like a really extreme amount of money for such a small number of students that actually participate, mostly in high school sports here.
Yeah, we have about 70% of our population that participates in athletics.
Okay, so what's
Okay, so I just,
Not just sharing.
it's a
stats.
comment or one question. It's not a dialogue, Molly, because we got a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate
I'm
your
just
concerns.
Explaining it's too much money, and I think you're trying again to hit the taxpayers at too high of a number. I think it's very disrespectful when you do that to the public, and I wrote a letter last fall about this. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing.
Suzette?
Yeah, it's Suzette Smuckler, 22 Loretta Gate. I have two short questions. I didn't bring my calculator with me. What is the total student population at this point?
You're talking to pre-K to 12?
Yes.
It's just about 1,000.
And what's the cost per student? Like I said, I didn't bring the
Like
count.
43 grand.
Well, I mean, I didn't bring those numbers with us. Some people look at the overall spend, but that's not how the state calculates it. The state breaks out general ed spending costs and special ed general costs. So when you look at how the state calculates it, it's approximately, off the top of my head, about 24,000 for general ed students and approximately 70,000 for special ed students.
So you don't have a specific average number for the 1,000?
Well, we could give that to you, we're not prepared
Well,
with that, and I don't.
yes,
want
you
to-
could you could divide the budget of 40 million by 1,000 and come out with 40,000.
Right, but that's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Okay. So looking at your capital projects page, where you identify the projects from 21 to 22, 22 to 23, estimating the summer of 2023, those projects will be started or completed?
Started and completed.
Funded out of this budget or the previous budget?
Correct.
Funded
This-
out of the previous
this
budget.
current school
Previous
year,
budget?
Yes.
Okay. So that looks like it's use of capital reserve. You're using your capital reserve for those projects.
Partially. It depends on which one if you go back to each of those 5 years, Mr. Lester's identified whether it was a use of a capital reserve, which we did all the roofs out of the capital reserve, or there are general fund appropriations, which is a line item in the budget.
See that.
So it's separated that way
Okay.
for you.
So, and then for 23 to 24, and moving forward, which there are no future years identified, are there projects identified for the capital reserve for 23 and 24?
Not as of yet. So
Right, you
we
got
have
it.
in the back of our mind some additional window phases and additional bathrooms at the elementary school. The capital reserve was wiped out for the retaining walls and drainage, and the way it's funded is when we have surpluses at the end of each year. So we're in the process of building the capital reserve back up.
So if you go back to the pie chart on page 8 with the budget components for 23-24, it looks like your capital component is almost 5 million.
Right, so it's not just the capital, it's things like custodial costs, building and grounds. So if you look, the little description that's under it, those are the things that go into the capital component. It's not just purely capital projects.
Okay, so does that mean that going into the following year, there will be some, that type of capital component moving forward, or do you see
Yeah, it was just
another-
on the other slide.
Yeah.
Go back to the other slide.
That is our
They
plan,
have
is that we're
That
gonna-
last group of
Yep, so what is that?
23, 24 coming out of that
37?
Yeah.
budget line item.
So this upcoming school year in 23-24, we've allocated about 1.37 million for capital projects. And that would be our goal moving forward, is to keep that number around that, if not continue to grow it a little bit more so that we can do the larger projects within a capital with the budget rather than going out for borrowing.
Okay.
So we have multiple ways. School districts have multiple ways to fund projects, right? We could go out for a bond. We could do it in a line item of our budget, just like you would at home, and you plan for something to be fixed and you put it in your budget. Or you build up your savings, which is our capital reserves, to use later on. And right now, we've used all our capital reserves. So that's what Mr. Lester is describing, that over time, when we do have excess funds, we will look to put them in our capital reserve fund so that we can use them for larger projects. But that, of course, takes time. And with the retaining wall at the middle school, high school, that hill is sliding. You know that very well in Port Jefferson about the way the water comes in, and we needed to do that right away. So that $2.3 million is coming out of that, and that really did wipe out that reserve.
Point of order in the back of the room, please. Got a little mumbling going on. Any other questions from the audience? Or Kathy Ann, please, let's keep it short. No offense.
Mine is short, actually. In terms of safety, I know during our safety meetings, we talked about the rear boundary fence at the elementary school, and one of the issues that was brought up was that the security fence can be locked from the outside to keep people from coming in, but in case of an emergency where students and faculty and administration needs to quickly leave the property, is there something put in place to get out of those gates?
So yeah, they were going to be basically panic bars like you would see even on some of the inner doors. So there would be like a spring to keep to have the door closed, but then the panic bar could be used to make an emergency exit.
Got it.
From the inside.
Okay, thank you.
And that was a recommendation actually from our safety audit with the Department of Homeland Security, Suffolk County, who came and said that that is a vulnerable area and that they really would like a boundary fence there.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the general public? Zena?
Hello, Zena Ugrinsky, 2 Rosita Lane. On page 9, is it possible to just get, like, I'm looking at the board presentation or the budget presentation, and like there are no student numbers anywhere. So on page 9, can we just add resident students and a line for the non-resident students for both the actual and budget for the previous 3 years?
Yeah, I see no reason not.
Yeah. We don't actually separate it, when you report to the state, we don't report on whose tuition. I mean, we have that internally. So if you were looking on, if you wanted that information sooner than later, you could go on the New York State report card, and that gives every student in every district. But if you wanted the more detail of what you're describing, we'd have to give you that internally, but we could do that.
And we
Yeah,
don't
if you
count the
could just add it
non-resident
to the slide 9,
Yeah.
that'd be
Yeah,
great, right?
be
Just to answer
Yeah.
this resident's question about the.
And I mean, some of the things that we've been doing, even with the enrollment going down, is we're trying to capitalize on improving the program. So for instance, last year, we gave full-day pre-K. That was brand new, and many of the residents really were very happy to see full-day pre-K. We have 2 full classes with full-day pre-K, rather than, accessing teachers.
This year, proposed in this budget, is to bring down instrumental music to 3rd grade. Rather than accessing music teachers, bringing the music program to students earlier so they can begin their instruments in 3rd grade, which is a huge enhancement in terms of their music development. So we're trying to capitalize on those things too as well. Still trying to be fiscally responsible with the reduction that you saw with the 2.6, but yet enhancing the program where we can to attract young families and to attract other students and things to come to the district.
Kelly?
Kelly Devine, 119 Jane Avenue. Very quickly, going back to the HVAC, are there any opportunities for NYSERDA or federal grants, considering all of the funding that's coming out for updating the HVACs?
I mean, we generally do try and apply for any grants possible, and we have had a few NYSERDA in the past. Unfortunately, when you're viewed as a perceived wealthy district, the grants generally go to those that are perceived to be in greater need. So there's a thing called the combined wealth ratio, which is a combination of house values and household income, one being an average. So they generally say below 1 is in need and above 1 is above average, and we hover between high 2s and low 3s. So when it comes to grants, we kind of fall towards the bottom.
We had a small grant for our green roof in one area, for the solar panels that are on the field house at Scraggy. So we've gotten them in small doses, but not large scale.
And we've done some other lighting grants as well for like LED lighting. But as far as like large wholesale grants, we've not been lucky.
Take one more comment, or if not, we'll thank our administrators. Sorry. Hi, sure. Well, I got one more. One more for the road.
They were clapping for you coming.
I just had a question.
Name and address for the record. Sorry.
Carol Macy's Fox, 215 Hawthorne Street. I had a quick question about the renovation of the heating system, and I was wondering if you've considered heat pumps or anything that's not a fossil fuel, based system. Just wondering if you've thought about that.
I mean, I'm good on the money. I'm not good on the engineering.
Okay.
I know we, work with our
architect on that, and I know we do have a heat pump in the high school. I couldn't speak to it the way he could probably speak to the heat pump, but I know that when we redid the middle school, our middle school was steam heat, and as an emergency repair, one summer we had to redo that heating system. So I know there were heat pumps and circulators, maybe that's the right term for it, that were in there, but I do know that the architect has explored those kinds of things as well.
But if you'd like to contact us,
We
I
can
can get
give
you a better
full
answer
details.
from my facilities director.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. All right. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Jessica, for attending tonight, informing the general public. Probably seen more people here than maybe in the last, couple years. All right. So now we're going to move on to public hearing, which I think why the majority of people might be in the room this evening, other than our usual suspects that we see every month, and that you know who you are. I'm going to cede the floor to Brian. We'll just say that basically the reason why we are here tonight, why we proceeded with the public hearing, is we do have a party who is in contract to purchase the subject or the premises that we're discussing here, the Maryhaven site, and there is a timeline for them, and there is a trigger in the code that brings them to the Board of Trustees because of the historic nature of the property and a significant building at this site. We also have the representatives from Beachwood, who is the organization who is in contract to purchase. And we have, thank you, Kevin. We have some historic information on the site and what it's meant to, the village of Port Jefferson over the years. Maryhaven was brought to us. I'm just going to read that first paragraph so I can read it into the record. Maryhaven owes its heart and mission to a small community of nuns from France, the Daughters of Wisdom. On July 20th, 1930, the Right Reverend Thomas E. Malloy blessed and dedicated the Wharton Memorial Institute. The building was constructed with funds specifically bequeathed by William J. Wharton for the establishment of an institute which would provide services for mentally and emotionally disturbed children. On September 12, 1930, the sisters moved into their new home and set about their tasks of caring for 40 disabled children. 1961, the school was renamed Maryhaven to better identify the work founding sisters had been passed on to generations of well-trained caregivers who have continued to provide its caring programs through a network of facilities throughout Long Island. Unfortunately, due to budget constraints and lack of support for the programs that were being provided at the facility over the years, the campus went dark. I think probably 4 or 5 years ago, right before the pandemic onset, and the property was listed for sale 2019, and I believe the price point on the 10-acre site was $20 million. And Board of Trustees did look at this back about 18 months ago under the with Attorney Egan and Allison Lapointe at that time to consider whether we should rezone, and we said, because of the significance of the site and the building, let's wait and see who comes forth, what use the market will yield. And here we are tonight. And with that introduction, I will give the floor to Attorney Egan and also yield it to the representative from Beachwood this evening. Their attorney is present because I've only felt it was fair to hear from Beachwood about what they'd like to have done on the site. And so we're full disclosure tonight, folks, so we can hear what's going on. We can make a good decision for the community. The Board of Trustees is not voting on anything tonight. We are going to more than likely keep the public comment section opportunity open and listen. And, this is our opportunity to let the public get involved. So, Brian, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the Board of Trustees, members of the public. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. This is exactly the reason why we wanted to pass this law or consider it, because we've got to start somewhere on what this property is going to be. And I also, as I was thinking, oh, you can't hear me? Oh, there's one here. Can you hear me in the back? Oh, okay, you can? Okay. I'm usually. Yeah, I don't want to turn my back on Rebecca, but I'll do it if I have to. I mean, I hate to do it. All right, I hate to do it. It's just, product of the Catholic school. It's not a. Come on up. All right. All right, thanks. Sorry in advance. So I was thinking about, tonight's presentation and how to make zoning simple and understanding and not get overly complicated on what this site could be. But as I led to it, I thought about a quote from Mahatma Gandhi, and this room fills it, right? Honest disagreement is often a good sign of progress. And what's this property going to be? It's going to have to be something, right? It's closed. But how does the village, how do we get on this journey for what this is going to become? The mayor outlined that in 2016-17, the property went dark. 2019, the property gets listed for sale. That makes a major concern for the mayor's administration, what's going to happen with that property, with the future of it. And not so much that those other smaller buildings are anything worth keeping, but that big building is certainly worth keeping. And I don't think that anyone really disagrees with it. I don't want to ask for a show of hands because it really is kind of a rhetorical question. It is a beautiful historic structure, 1929, pseudo Venetian kind of style in its construction. It's a landmark that can be seen from the water. But the problem with a landmark is that it's a triangular site directly in the middle of it that makes any redevelopment around it difficult. And it makes it scarier, and again, I'm the village attorney, so I'm speaking about kind of collectively in our voice, but at least the voice of the mayor and her administration. It makes it more difficult because the goal is to keep it, to readapt it for a new use. It would be a disgrace, a Long Island disgrace, if that building was not reused or repurposed for something else. And they say, well, that's a fiction, that'll never happen. What I think of, in my mind, is look at the village of Garden City. Wealthy, equivalent village to the village of Port Jefferson, and it has the glorious St. Paul School right in the middle of it. And if anybody wants to look at that, I encourage you to Google that and see 20-plus years of the village of Garden City fumbling around with what the future of that Stewart Hall building is going to be. It's a glorious building that the Village of Garden City can't figure out its way of what to do with it. So let me do a little past his prologue on what could be here if we left it. And again, it's a zoning presentation, so it's not meant to alarm, but it's just meant to lay out what the law is and why we thought a change and adapted change with your input might be necessary. So in the sales brochure that was public and put out, the permitted uses under the PO office district, that's what that's called, PO, Professional Office District, is accurately set out that it could be used as a hospital, a sanitarium, nursing homes, medical offices, group homes, residential group home, other philanthropic uses, elomysonary institutions, which I thought was a fun word. That means charitable. Interestingly, also, those are as of right. So you could have a nursing home, you could have an adult home, you could have a group home, you could have a hospital, you could have a sanatorium. And interesting, as of right, too, the hospital can be 6 stories tall. Just something to think about. In the code already, without change, 6-story hospital, and the adult homes and nursing homes could be 3 stories. But in the PO code, it has another section that refers to a moderate density residence, RM district. And that would allow clustered multiple dwellings. And they can have that as a conditional use. But that doesn't provide for saving that building. You could go to a residential RM district in the PO code, but there's no obligation to save that building. So how do we get creative to try to save the building, which we all think is a treasure and necessary to do, and want to see repurposed? So the proposal tonight that's being debated, again, not voted on tonight, but just debated and soliciting opinion, is to enhance the conditional use that already allows multi-dwelling on this property, not a rezone, but allow, as part of this development, a special permit application to the Board of Trustees. And a special permit application is another layer of control that the property, to qualify for this use, must have an architectural or unique aesthetic style important to the heritage of the village, which that building would qualify for. And that would be something that the developer would have to prove to this board to qualify for that special permit. If the property does not have that unique architectural or historical context, the special permit's denied. So it's a first step to get there. If the special permit is granted, that building, or whatever the building is, not just necessarily this one, it could apply in other RM zones as well, or other PO zones that qualify for RM. I know it's zoning, it's complicated. But that qualify as well, you could apply to the board to say this building is historic and should be saved, and I want to qualify for these slightly relaxed standards, which is the meat of the presentation. But the first stop must be here. Assuming that the special permit is granted, it then goes back through the normal planning board process that every application goes through. And that's the planning board, site plan, any variances in the zoning board, planning board, all of the applications. None of it is waived, none of it is fast-tracked, all of it's the same. So really what this is hoping to do is twofold. One, put in an incentive to save that building, to allow a special permit to go here first stop, let the board consider it. Second, give whoever the developer is, this parcel or some other architecturally significant parcel, an incentive to do it. Because without an incentive, you get St. Paul's School, or worse, you get a demolition. And that wouldn't be good, and not something that we'd want. So how do you incentivize a developer? And I'm going to do a compare and contrast on the proposal that the Board of Trustees discussed, did not adopt, obviously, there's no vote yet, discussed at the work session and kind of generally agreed that these were parameters at least for the draft. And then I want to compare what's actually already permitted. So the proposal, the current zone would allow 5,500 per square feet on a lot area per dwelling unit, and we would reduce that to 2,250. On a front yard, the required front yard is 75 feet. We would reduce that to 40. It's a reduction of 35 feet. One side yard, you have to have 40. You have to have 50. We reduced it by 40, so a 10-foot reduction. Both side yards, you have to have 110, and we reduced it to 80. Rear side yard, Kevin, can you get that on Google by any chance? Possible? Oh, is it here? It's distributed to everybody in the back, but if I can get that, if I can get Google Map, you'll be able to see where these side yards are for context. This is in the back, by the way, if anybody needs it, it's back there. Oh, there's a big pile. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Oh, perfect. Perfect. All right. Oh, good. Thanks. Okay, so let me zoom in a little. Everyone knows where this is. Is this touch screen? All right, good. Oh, yeah, here we go. Let's see this up here. Just a little. Perfect.
Is that all right?
Yep. That's good. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now everybody sees what the context of this. This is the property, and you'll see that. Yep, that's the border with Canyon Creek, the development on Canyon Creek. It's very narrow. There's a fence line right there. That red building is the building we're talking about. The section is as a later annex. Then there are the smaller buildings that loop up towards Belterre Road that come towards the entrance, which is called Chapel Street. That's the gate that's in the front that we all pass, with the granite gates. The Myrtle and Belterre Road sides are both sharply and steeply sloped, so they're not going to be ever really practically built upon. But I want to have the picture up there so you understand the context of what I'm talking about with front yards and side yards. So, the one side yard, you have to have a 50-foot side yard. We're proposing to reduce it to 40. It's 10 feet. Both side yards combined would be 110. We're proposing to relax it to 80. The rear yard, which is against Canyon Creek there, yep, thank you, Mayor, is supposed to be 40. We're reducing that to 20, again, because that building gap is very narrow to that property line right there at the corner. This probably is already 20. The livable floor area per dwelling unit on square feet is actually an increase. That it is now you're allowed to have 700 square feet on livable floor area per dwelling unit in square feet is supposed to be 700. We're actually proposing to increase it to 1,000. Usable open space, the recreation fee in lieu of open space is $1,500 per unit that any developer has to contribute to the recreation fee to benefit the village, and that is proposed to remain unchanged and stay the same at $1,500. The maximum lot coverage is presently 20%. That's the maximum. We're looking to increase that to 55% because this property, at least, in particular, is zoned already, is already cleared roughly 70% by estimate. And again, just for context, there is no formal application before the board at this time. There are every applicant, every developer on any development comes in and says, these are the ideas that I have. This is what I'm thinking about. Is this plausible? Is this real? Am I just whistling in the wind? Is it raining? Is this possible? You name the project, it's happened. The Gap store, otherwise, what about this lot? Can we do this? Is this feasible? There's been no formal submission on this. There are concept plans that are floating around, but nothing official or been submitted to the village. So the lot coverage is already roughly, on this property in particular, is roughly about 67-70% by our estimate. The building height is currently allowed for regular residential developments 3.5 stories. We propose to increase it to 47 stories, and the number of stories permitted. 47 feet. I'm sorry, 47. Sorry, right. That'd be a Brooklyn-style development, I think, right? I'm glad someone said 47 feet. And I'm jumping ahead. And the number of stories is permitted to be 4 as opposed to 3.5. So a bit of an incentive to try to build around that building. The height of the tower, by the way, is something approximately 70-something feet on height, just for perspective. The last, and probably one that we're all very sensitive to, is permitted clearing. And the proposal presently cleared, roughly again, about 70%. Chapter 241 is a bit of a crossover on land clearing that you have to cross-reference. The maximum clearing allowed is 50%, and the proposal here is to allow 65% or the existing cleared area. So again, the existing cleared area is roughly between 65 and 70%. So it's already been developed. So the proposal is to keep it roughly the same. The parking requirements all remain the same. All of those other requirements that are set forth in the code are not changed. So you need 2 parking spaces per unit. All right. That is the summary. I know it was a lot to digest, but that is the summary of what's proposed for the section.
Okay, so I'd really like to, Mr. Michael Dubb is here, his attorney Richard. If you guys would like to come up and just give the community an idea of, this is the principal of Beachwood. They would like to build condominiums for ownership. We're really trying, the reason we increased the square footage of the proposed units was to prevent us having yet another apartment complex here. So please come on forward and tell us who you are, and Richard, keep him in line.
Hi, I'll hold it. Michael Dubb, I am the principal of the Beachwood organization along with my son Stephen. Started the company in 1985. Okay, started the company in 1985. Have built, I've lost track, probably 70 or 80 communities across Long Island, really from the Hamptons through Suffolk, Nassau, into the Rockaways and Queens. I'll just give you a little background about this property and how it come to us. But before I do, most of the communities I built in the area, quite a few at 347 Smithtown, are called Country Point. Country Point at Smithtown, Country Point, Kings Park, Melville. So Catholic Health, which owns the property, obviously put it up for sale, and they solicited bids for the property. All of the bids that they solicited were based on, from developers, were based on building a rental project. Obviously, Port Jefferson is a popular place for rentals. The type of communities that we're known to develop are condominiums in communities, and one of the things we create, or have a large part of what we do, is build housing for people who have lived in the area and maybe outgrown their house, but want, the roots are here, they want to stay here, and they don't want the responsibility of a house. So that's one market. Another one of the markets is people who want to be in the area but aren't quite ready for a house yet. Younger people, maybe they don't have kids or are going to start a family. So we that's kind of the bulk of our market. Snowbirds, empty nesters, so forth. So in any event, Catholic Health did their own due diligence. They did it on us, and they did it on what they thought would happen with the town. So they felt going with a developer who would propose for sale was the prudent move. Now, we, as Mr. Egan said, we are just in the beginning of a long process where we typically have a lot of meetings with the stakeholders in the community, take take input. But the challenge of this site, and I've done this before, if it would be easier for me as the developer to knock that building down, just go in, remediate it because there's some asbestos in there. But that wouldn't be the right thing to do. It's a gorgeous building, and in terms of what you would do with it, it becomes a challenge for us both architecturally and financially to rehabilitate it. But what we would do is we would put several apartments, condominium apartments in the building, repurpose it. In this case, each apartment in the building would have its own identity. And we would probably also put our common area facilities in the building, meaning what we call our clubhouse. So that would be the card room, the gym, the meeting area. We would have the swimming pool close by. But as was pointed out, unfortunately, the building is in a location that makes it very hard to plan around it. So we're in contract with Catholic Health to buy it. We're in the beginning of a process of approvals. We're not asking for any approvals. We haven't submitted anything. But at some point, we either go forward with the project or we don't go forward with the project. And Catholic Health would, I guess, do something else with the property. So with that, I'm going to introduce Terry Elkowitz and Rich Rosenberg. Terry is with VHB. She is our planning advisor. And Rich Rosenberg is with my company, and he is involved in the zoning and contract of the property. And what I want to do is I want to hear everybody's comments, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm a big boy, I can take it. I've been in rooms of people who don't like me, but oftentimes they wind up living in the community after it's built. But I would like to introduce Terry and Rich to see if they have anything to add to what I've... Okay.
Just to be clear, my client is pretty modest. I negotiated the contract with Catholic Health. There is no requirement in the contract to keep the building. As Brian had mentioned, we went into contract about a year ago. We went in to meet with the mayor, the deputy mayor, and the village clerk, and we wanted to share concepts with him. And the mayor and deputy mayor made very clear at the beginning, saying, number one, keep the building. Number two, for sale. Number three, watch your height. So those are the edicts that we went around. So I just want to be clear about that. Apropos, today you had the school district. This property has been off the rolls since 1920. They're not paying taxes. Okay? The only time it's going to be taxed is when it's conveyed to a private party. The property right now is assessed at $286,000, which means the taxes right now for the property is approximately $900,000, that $100,000 would go to the village had they paid the taxes. So you're looking at the school district, as we all are, and seeing costs go up. The only way to even it up is to bring more property onto the tax rolls. If we get approved, again, no rentals, no IDA, no grants. They'll be paying full taxes except to the extent that they're seniors and they're entitled to the standard senior extension. And we estimate the taxes at that point. And this is just rough because you figure you're 2 years out. The taxes should be somewhere around 1.6, 1.7 million, of which the village tax would be about 10%, or 170,000. One other point. Whether it's gated or not, and we're not up to that, the roadways are maintained by the association. The garbage is maintained by the association. So village services to both the village, the school district and the county are going to be minimal. It's pretty much self-serving. One other question that people had, and I don't mean to take up, Mayor, I'll be very
No,
quick.
That's fine, Rich.
One other thing people say is, okay, non-age restricted, how many kids are going to be there? We've done dozens of these communities. They anticipate that anywhere between 0.09 to 0.18 kid per condominium.
We need kids.
2 but the point is, they're going to be paying school taxes, and they won't be educating children, so that's another benefit on the school taxes. I just wanted, the mayor spoke about the glided path. Right when that property, right when the exemption's burning off, hopefully at that point, we would have acquired the property, we're going to be on the tax rolls. Okay, so there's going to be more income that's going to be coming in there. The one other thing I just very briefly want to show, and as Michael said, we're going to stay and listen, is, and the village attorney brought this up very quickly. This is the site. The site is 10 acres. Yeah, I'm going to tell you now. I'll hold it up. Okay.
Just get out of everybody's way.
Maybe after their presentation, give a 5-minute recess for people to come up and look.
So in any case, it's 10 acres along Belterre Road. The village already acquired.
Richie, can you speak into the microphone again, hon?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Along Belterre Road, the village already acquired and was deeded by our predecessor about 1/3 of an acre along Belterre. So that's going to be natural forever. The building currently is 100,000 square foot. The intention is to keep the original part of the structure, which totals around 45,000 square feet, demolish the rest. There is asbestos, there is lead-based paint. We have to clean it up according to regulations. It's a big-ticket item. Catholic Health estimated that to put the property back on and make it useful for them, they would expend over $10 million. What we wanted to do, as per the first day we met the mayor and the deputy mayor, is we're looking for density to round it up so we can keep the clubhouse the way, the building, make it into a clubhouse and sales, and also have various buffers. It's going to be very tight because right here, just to give you on Myrtle Avenue, right here, this is approximately 100 feet. And as the village attorney indicated, we can't move where the existing building is. It's right dab in the middle. This is the challenge of our lifetime right now for our company to make this work and make it all. We're very, very sensitive. In the back, we know that, I believe it's Canyon Creek. So this area here, we're looking to do some type of amenity, a pool or something like that. We're going to keep, there are retaining walls along this back area. We are not going to touch those. And that's pretty much it. As far as concepts, we had to start somewhere. We do not have a site plan. What we do have is, when we met with the mayor and the deputy and the village clerk, we showed the type of buildings that we've built. We built them in Garden City. We built them in Plainview. They've done quite well. They're excellent. They look good. If anybody is interested, we'll give you tours of them. But what we were trying to do is determine a product, work back, how can we save the building, and then how can we fit everything. We are for profit. I'm not going to lie to you. So buying the building to maintain, to change it is going to cost a lot. What happens if we don't get our approvals? Goes back to Catholic Health. Who knows? I cannot comment to you. I can only tell you that when we went in originally, I looked at this, and as an attorney, I said, and you guys are not going to like this, start with a clean slate, take the building down. Made it very clear we're not, okay? So That's where we are right now. Terry Elkowitz is with our site planner, environmental. Terry, if I missed anything?
Great, okay.
We're not going anywhere. We'll be here today if you want to answer any questions.
So if you would like to make a comment, you need to, again, just come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Yep.
We want to hear from everybody.
Just before I sit down, because there's some people couldn't see it. This is what we built in Garden City. This is what we've built in Garden City, and let's see. Also, this is what we built. This is what we kind of have in mind conceptually for the buildings to look like. Okay.
Guys, no yelling questions from the back of the room. You must come to the microphone so everybody can hear the question and we get the answer on the record. Mr. Saxton.
Eric Saxton, 16 Princess Street Court, Port Jefferson, New York. I'm very familiar with this area. I built Canyon Creek. I was vice president of Brookwood Communities, also the attorney for them. I also had a lawsuit against where I live now in the Terraces for what they were doing over there. I think the big problem that most of us have here is density. We don't know a traffic study. None has been done. I don't think the planning department has been involved with this, but it's how many units per acre. That's the big issue here. They're allowed to, it's their land, they're allowed to use it. If they sell it, and it's now, commercial, not religious, and it's going to be taxed, it's fine. How many units per acre? You got 10 acres, how many units are you going to allow? That's the issue here. We had the problem with Canyon Creek. Same thing had the problem with the Terraces. They had the same problem here. The village was very difficult to deal with on both those units. So the question is, they're allowed to do what they have to do, and you're allowed to make changes. But how much density are you going to allow them to have?
Understood. Thank you, Eric.
Mark Lyon, 204 William Street, Port Jefferson, New York, 11777. I've heard some numbers, 188 units. Does anybody have any idea what the sewage flow is going to be? Does anybody have any idea how they're going to be able to maintain the site with the water that's going to be present on the property from the rain and the weather? We had that problem at St. Charles, if you remember. Your mom was there. We lost that little dike there. There's nowhere for the water to go. I live downstream, and we get, water from that particular site all the time down below. I don't know how they're going to control it. I would have to say they'd have to be magicians, but sewerage is another thing. How much is this going to affect the sewer plant? Is it going to adversely affect any other development in the community after this is built? That can be a problem. Sewer district number 11 over in Selden is now completely full. All right. Eventually, all sewer plants, they end up being at capacity. And are we going to be at that point with this? Has anybody, taken any kind of a preliminary look at it? I mean, Terry, I'm sure, must have by now. And what about the traffic? I see you still have the counters out there. Who's doing that? Beachwood, the diocese, the village? I mean, that intersection has always been problematic. We tried to fix it with getting rid of that one little cut through there. And we put the traffic light up there to be able to stabilize some of the impact that created. But it's an impossible intersection. I would have to say that there's a lot of problems with this site, no matter who builds it and no matter what they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. 188 units. Terry and Rich, do you want to comment on that? We don't have I can get up and just...
Rich cited some income, some tax income.
No, I understand that, but I mean, can we explain that to the general public, because those are questions that are not being presented to us.
Terry Elkowitz, VHB, 100 Motor Parkway, Hop Hog, New York. So, Mayor, I think Mr. Egan was pretty clear early on. We don't have a plan to study. What this village board is doing, as Mr. Regan did explain, is you're proposing a mechanism, a zoning amendment that's a mechanism to save this building. Because when my clients came in to see you, they didn't come in to save the building. They came in to build a development. You and the deputy mayor made it perfectly clear that this building had to be saved or else it was a non-starter. You also made it clear, as Mr. Rosenberg said, that it had to be ownership or it was a non-starter. Our clients have not prepared a plan, so I can't study a number of units, and I think Mr. Lyon and others behind me who know me pretty well and also know the process pretty well know that once the zoning is in place, we can come in with an application, and we, like everyone else, will be required to comply with state environmental law and town laws in doing all the studies we need to do. But my clients cannot prepare an application until they know what they're applying for.
Understood. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Can I'd just like to get Nick, or I'd like. Brian, I'm sorry, did you want to say something as well?
Let me just say too, on to follow up on that from the village's perspective, right? So I love Mark. Mark's the best. Mark, nice to see you. Always with the good questions, right? That's experience speaking. You know, they're not going to know that. Those are great questions, and I think those are intro questions. Number one, if this passes, and the developer says, I'm going to proceed with this, then it goes to site plan. And the planning board then is going to ask all those exact questions. Has to, must. They must ask those questions. How are you going to retain your water? Where are you going to store it? You're going to be underground? You're going to be in dry wells? What are you going to do? And you know who's going to be right behind that too? The health department on sewer flow. You know, where? Because everyone's got to flush, right? Where are you putting it? Where's it going to go? Are you going to upgrade the sewer plant? Do you have capacity in a local plant? Those are all questions that are going to go to the site plan. So the question first is, you know, one, is the proposal to loosen some of these regulations worth doing to save the building? If the answer is yes, the board can debate it. If it's no, then it's stillborn and it's over. But those kind of questions, if there's other questions about plans, are really for the site plan, if there's something here even to talk about.
You know, Mr. Rosner, then Mr. Akampora, and then Mr. Miller.
Good evening. Lee Rosner, 2 Court, Port Jefferson, New York. Good evening, Board of Trustees, and thank you for providing some time for me to speak. I'd like to speak about the code amendment that's on the table. You know, Beachwood is a responsible developer. They build great product. I don't really have any issue with, you know, their coming to our village to, you know, build a development. Where I have issues is with, you know, the code amendment that's on the table. And as Eric Saxton said, you know, the density incentive is, in my opinion, a bit extreme. You know, the RM zone, the maximum density is 8 units per acre. Under this code provision, it would more than double. I think I calculated it to be 19.2 units per acre. I understand that in order to preserve the building, that, you know, a certain amount of incentives are necessary to, you know, to offset the, you know, the costs of abatement and restoration. I get that, but I think it's just gone a little bit too far. And the other concern I have is, and I'm not so sure this can be done in the code, but having a minimum unit size of 1,000 square feet does not prohibit the development of an apartment complex. There's a couple of new developments in the village where the average unit size, they're rentals, and the average unit size is on average greater than 1,000 square feet, over Bay for one. And I don't know, is there a way to have the code specify that it's rental only? I mean, I'm sorry, sale only?
I
No
don't,
way.
I don't,
So that gets to my next issue. Beachwood presentation mentioned this a couple of times. The, they're going through a process. They have their intentions are to go ahead, and if the zoning code change happens, they'll go to their next step during their process. But it could possibly not work out for them. There are many sort of trips that can and falls that can happen during an acquisition process. And if we enact this code, the code runs with the land. It doesn't just stay with Beachwood. So you could get into a situation where you've given 19.2 units per acre. You've given 47 feet of height for the entire site. I mean, that's where the code's written, or that proposal's written. And then you don't have Beachwood anymore. And the next guy comes in and he knocks the building down and he builds 2 towers. So I just want to plant that in your head.
well, I don't think, this would be like an overlay zone, right? I mean, the intention is that the building has to stay in order to get these incentives. Can't knock the building down and get the incentives.
Well, you could put another 47-foot tall building in, no? Brian, no?
So Lee's right. If it got developed and it went to another developer afterwards, yes. I would think though from experience that Beachwood, if they put it into ownership, right, and they sell them as ownership, it's going to be difficult to convert the entire complex to rental once it's already
No, I think
scheduled as
his point
ownership.
is if Beachwood doesn't get through the process
Right.
and somebody else comes back in, they can demo the building but get the 47 feet and all the other stuff? No.
No. So here's our hook that we're hoping. The hook is to get the special permit, you have to preserve the architecturally significant building. If you don't preserve that building, you go back to square one. You don't qualify for these incentives.
I get that.
Yep.
I understand that. But I don't think there's anything that says that you couldn't squeeze another 47-foot high building on the site. You don't necessarily have to do the multiple 3-story buildings on the site, at least the way the code revision is
The
written.
code right now gives 35 feet.
It's going to go to 47.
Yeah,
Well,
12 extra
possibly.
feet.
That's something that we're considering. It's not.
Yep.
And
I
in
know,
fact,
I
I don't even think, may I ask the question? I mean, is that, are you proposing to go 47 feet?
We weren't looking for it at this point.
Okay. So we just took it off the table.
I just think it needs.
No, I'm just saying, this is the whole,
No,
like,
I think that.
Hold on.
I just want to say I think the code needs some further tweaking. And
okay. Appreciate that, Lee.
Thank you.
Nick, Mr. Akampora. Sorry, Mike.
Good evening, Nick Akampora, 201 Myrtle Avenue. Good morning, good afternoon, rather.
What day is it? No,
yeah, right? Thanks for letting me have the opportunity to talk. So I'm going to talk briefly on 2 things. First, I represent the Historical Society, as you know. So from the Historical Society's perspective, we applaud you guys on taking this initiative and trying to create a code to prevent demolition of historic buildings in the village. This is meant not just for the specific property, right? It's for everywhere in the village. Over the years, we've lost numerous historic buildings because folks came in without foresight, demolished these buildings for some new structures don't necessarily even meet the architectural standards that we're looking to achieve, right? So I applaud you that it's about time we do this because, again, we've lost many buildings to this. So it's something that we need to do. This is a good way to start this, and I believe it's appropriate. And I understand what Beachwood is trying to do specifically with this property. If you're going to try to save a building that's very old, or there are remediation things that you need to take into consideration, and they have to make a profit, of course, I get all that. And the only thing I want to add to this, I'm trying to keep brief here, is on the plan for this specific property, but it kind of goes on with any other properties too, is clearing of the land. I know you're speaking a little bit about clearing, but honestly, from a historical point of view and just from my personal point of view, we've lost way too many trees to asphalt, and that's something that's really got to be addressed. When you just look at Google Earth on the village, you could clearly see much more asphalt than trees. So it's something that I think you need to, I believe, you take into account, but that's certainly with at least this property, I could certainly, there's going to be a lot of pushback, at least from that perspective, with whatever remaining green spaces on that property. So that's something we have to look at as well. But again, I appreciate what you guys are doing with this zoning change and trying to make sure we maintain our historic character to this village. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Not just yet. Mr. Miller.
Greetings all. First of all, I'd like to state that I support the retaining of the historic building. I also support the concept of having condominiums as opposed to apartments there. You mentioned that there's going to be $1,500 per unit that goes to the village.
That's in the code right now.
Yeah. Brian, can you look up and tell me when that code was instituted?
So let's see. So the chart says 65, 68, 70, but I don't think that number has been adjusted since then. So I don't think that this is completely accurate, but the last update was 2016, I see on the editor's notes.
Okay, so 2016, what was the modification? Because I don't recall there being an increase. I recall applying this when it had not been applied because there hadn't been a lot of apartments constructed. What do we know about the increase?
It's not reflected in the code book from what the amount change was, Bruce.
If
It doesn't say. Yeah, it doesn't say it just indicates what the present amount is.
I would hope we could do some more research on that because, frankly, we've got an inflation factor here, and I'd like to see that increased. The density kind of in that area, it varies. You go down the hill, the houses are more close together. You go back a ways, and you're looking at mostly 1/3 of an acre zoning. So I'd like you to look closely because this 19.2 that Mr. Rosner is talking about is fairly high. I'd also like to know from liaisons with from the CAC and the ARC how much they've been involved up to this point.
Well, Bruce, you texted me this morning, and I texted you right back, letting you know that the CAC
Point of order. Point of order. I'll let the liaison to the ARC answer that question.
First, or he asked about the CAC and the ARC.
Okay, so you can answer on behalf of the CAC. I apologize.
Yep, that's what I was going ahead and doing. So Bruce had asked this question, and I let them know that we had this work session. The Board of Trustees had a work session on Tuesday morning. I can proceed to discuss a bit. The original draft that we were given as a board included for permitted clearing. It said existing cleared area plus up to 50% of the remaining natural vegetation to be cleared. And so at the work session, the board discussed this at length, and that shifted to what it reads as now is 65% or existing cleared area, whichever is greater. I do have a follow-up question for our attorney regarding roughly the same. The word roughly, how much is that word doing in that sentence? just
Are you answering the question about the CAC involvement or
in a long
about the work
way.
session?
Yeah. So
Okay, well,
so
if you could be more direct, that would be helpful.
indeed. So in the end, I reported to the CAC that the environmental concern had largely been addressed, and let them know about this and this public meeting. So they will, seeing as the comment period is likely to be kept open, I will email the chair and encourage them to write a letter on behalf of the CAC.
Thanks.
Now to the ARC.
I'm sorry, because I didn't hear the CAC part, Rebecca, so my apologies. ARC liaison.
The ARC did meet on this application or this proposed code change last week, and they were scrambling to get a letter of recommendation together prior to this meeting. There was a consensus on what was to be presented, but then there was a discrepancy on how far they could go or whether or not they were starting to step on the toes of the CAC. So I think my understanding is that they were willing to not put forth that written recommendation in time for this meeting, but to revisit and continue to come up with a strong consensus to write a recommendation moving forward.
All right, well, my point being that we've known about this vacancy for a very long time, but about the sale we've known for a long time. And I have been a liaison to the CAC and the ARC. I have worked as a liaison, et cetera, with the CAC on and off for about 30 years. The CAC used to be the ECAB, Environmental Conservation Advisory Board, the last word being the operative word, which is board. And I believe that these two committees should be boards that can take on stuff that they know is on the horizon, instead of working on this at the last minute. We're talking about a very short time frame for input from these committees. Working with the committees, there's been a lot of times when committees were assigned certain things, and then the mood changed, and then when the project was completed, it was kind of ignored. And there are things that have been done of value, and I think this needs to be, in my opinion, a board, and for the benefit of the people in the room who are not familiar with the distinction, is boards are decision-making bodies, like the planning board. They make decisions. The Board of Trustees delegates to these boards, in this case, Conservation Advisory Board, Architectural Review Board, and they have power and authority that they don't currently have. And this process is a little bit of a hurry up and wait kind of a thing. We're rushing into this. Now we're going to wait for information. But we need a longer period to look at these things, and we need boards that are separate that make their own decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Just a point of order. I have Officer Casey in the back of the room from Suffolk County. Did you want to, I know are you enjoying this public hearing? That's okay. Is there, no, okay, sorry. We want to continue on this track. So we don't want to keep you in the room if you ladies have, officers, if you have, okay. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Okay, Mark Croft, and I'm 11 Leeward Lane, Port Jefferson, in the Leeward, in the Highlands. Quick note, if we put all the utilities and the water drainage management aside, my main concern is the traffic for this area. It's a problematic area because of the traffic going to St. Charles Hospital, potentially going between hospitals. In the rare case that happens, it's getting less because of the different associations. And especially around 4 o'clock when shifts go off, there is a major problem along Belterre Road. As far as any moving traffic, there can be a significant volume load. For ambulances trying to access St. Charles, for traffic along that stretch of territory, what a development of this area means. And although the company can make adjustments for all the utilities, management of the traffic is going to potentially require at least some consideration for modification of the roadways, to the extent of getting access to these buildings for the people who are living there and the extra traffic that's encountered in that process. So I just wanted to point that out.
I believe traffic studies are a requirement
Right.
of the planning process. So
Right,
yeah,
and
that would definitely
yeah,
go
but
through.
I'm just saying it's going to be very dicey, the traffic studies trying to figure out how to manage this. Yeah.
Well, I'll leave that up to the traffic engineers. Stephen, I'm sorry.
Steve Velasquez, 208 East Broadway. A couple of questions I have. One is the current code you said is only specific to certain usage of the area. Does that include municipalities?
I'm not sure I followed the question.
If the current site, you stated many usages of its possible usage.
Yes.
I was just wondering if municipalities was in one of those specific areas.
That's a municipal use on that property?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, one of the questions that I had is currently Beachwood does do a lot of different developments in the area. I would like to see that the board looked into their use of condos. How many condos do they currently serve? And if that's an area that they are familiar in doing. Second is that the current area, should it not be developed by Beachwood, I would think that possibly the town, the village, should think about possibly purchasing that land to move the village's current operations from here to the top and develop that for our usage, and sell this property to Beachwood to use for other usage. Just an idea. It's way out there. I just wanted to toss it out there, and I thank you for keeping the historic building, the empathy of all the nuns and doctors who went into caring for all those children up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Anna?
Anna Khazanova, 102 Hawthorne Street, in Port Jefferson. I have just questions like stepping back. We're changing the code, not just the variance for this specific.
The chatter in the back of the room, please.
We're changing the code. We're not applying for a variance. So we are not discussing just this particular property. So I'm curious how this.
I'm sorry, could you, I want to make sure I understood that statement.
The discussion right now.
Yes.
Is about a change of code.
For this particular property.
For this particular zone.
For this particular
zone.
But this particular property has the historic. I just want to clarify that we all understand.
Yeah, so everyone's kind of saying the same thing, actually, so it's just a verbiage parlance. Correct, the context is this particular property and what we're talking about for the relaxation, so you can understand what the actually concrete concept would be. But you are correct, this is a general zoning code amendment that would apply to other properties that are zoned in the RM district.
If they have a significant.
Correct. If they have the conditioning of having a significant architectural or aesthetic contributor to the village as proved to the Board of Trustees.
That's why we're here. Right. It's about the building, but go ahead.
I am curious how many buildings would potentially qualify for that in the village?
In that particular RM zone, there are not, I think we discussed this at the board meeting, we don't think there are really any others in the RM that would create this trigger to come before this board. That's why this is a truly unique circumstance.
And given that the code will live beyond this building 50 years down the line, we might have another building that would be deemed for various reasons historical. So how would that, did you do a future analysis to look at that, how that would potentially be applied?
Yeah, Brian, you can answer that question.
Good question. No, normally you don't do that because the board has the power to have a similar public hearing. If if this law becomes stale, overused, abused, or otherwise, the board can always repeal that section. Zoning is a living, that's why I'm not really a fan of comprehensive plans, because you can't really predict what's going to happen in 2030, 2050. We could all be driving around in Jetson cars for all we know. We don't really know what's going to happen. With parking, we've seen it with parking calculations already, right? How many people take Uber and Lyft to places and don't park cars? It's amazing how that's actually changed on calculations. But that being said, the zoning is a living, breathing document, so it changes all the time.
The other questions that I had were, given that this building is deemed valuable historically, have the board, and the board has been aware of the fact that this building is up for sale for an extended period of time, have you explored the possibility of purchasing that building through the New York State as a part of the landmark preservation, and any funding on that side that will afford the village use of that property for a variety of reasons?
No, this board has not, because $20 million to purchase a property that we don't have an intended purpose or use for, I don't think would be the priority of this administration at this point in time.
Okay. And then given the presentation that we had last month about the flood risks and the rest of the risks for the village, I know that this board cannot speak to the fire department. For the fire department, have there been any conversations or reach out to them about a possibility of using that property as a fire department? Because that property would be large enough to house a fire department as well as an emergency response center that will prepare our village to respond to natural disasters and potentially be a center for example, temporary shelters or other uses. So I'm just trying to figure out, are we really looking at either this developer or tear down, or do we actually have other options that we could consider as a village?
Well, so first of all, this is a private property that's being sold and has been for sale since, I think, 2019. So, whether the fire department was seeking, other means of trying to relocate, I know that they've come to us and they talked about certain open parcels that I don't think this price point could even be in their wildest imagination at this point in time. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but they have not reached out to us about converting this to a fire rescue station.
Also, I wanted to make a point about the fact that we were talking about, like, once and if this code is passed, then the planning board and the rest of the village procedures will be encountered. Last year, we were, as a community, dealing with the Mather Hospital and the expansion on that side. And I am afraid that with this property, if the law is passed or the amendment passed the way it is right now, the villagers will have little to no tools to object to that. Because the moment you allow for certain parameters to be in, the developers will take all of it and might even consider asking for more variances to add a little bit more. And we as villagers will have no tools to say, no, we don't like this density, we don't like the amount of clearing, we don't like the setbacks, we would like something else, but it's already written into the law. So the planning department, the planning board, will not stand up and say, oh, we've heard that the villagers don't like that, so we ask you to reconsider. They will not do that.
I don't know, Barbara, if that's a statement about the planning board and your process, so I don't know. Don't want to comment on the planning board or the zoning board and their process. And Anna, I know you're well aware of the zoning board and how the zoning board works for relief.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I'm saying, because last year, this community fought tooth and nail for 2 acres of woodland up in the matter to demand the construction of the parking lot, not the parking lot, parking garage instead of a parking lot. And all the planning department did was said, the variance was granted. We cannot demand. And there were more than 100 people demanding for the woods to be preserved. And they were not preserved because the planning board said, we don't have power. So my concern is that the way this code is being drafted and the threat from the developer, oh, we'll take down the building, is really based on a lot of the hyped up threat rather than actual factual analysis of what are the alternative uses. Can we keep it as a PO? Can we engage other potential uses? Can we, as this board wonderfully does, bring in external funding to support the redevelopment of this building in light of what this community needs? And now we're just saying it's either this developer or nothing. And I am just really concerned about that.
I really,
Sure.
the statement of hyped up threat, it really concerns me because I think this community is in agreement that we would like to preserve this building. And we're not hyping up any threat or anything. We are having an open public process of trying to come to a careful balance of how we can make that happen with a reputable builder who wants to build homes and avoid getting into a situation where we have either a blighted parcel on our hands or another apartment building, which I don't think this community wants. And there are other permitted uses of this property, and we have no other takers, nobody else willing to come and say, we'd like to open up a new medical park, which, by the way, I think would increase density for this use and more traffic trips. Residential use is the best and most gentle use of property, and I would, respectfully, I want to make sure that we are aligned on making sure that we care about what's happening here tonight.
I care just like you do about preserving that building. Taking the developer's word for the fact that it will cost more to preserve it than to tear it down without getting a second or third opinion about a potential cost for that, to understand how many other buildings of that size from that era have been taken down in order to put something else. I would like to see that analysis done before any code is being amended.
We'll take your comment into consideration. Thank you. Mr. Cosella.
Good evening, Roger Corsella, 106 Hill Street, property owner. Good evening. I'd like to tell you a story. Years ago, I worked in New York City, and then Ed Koch, who was the mayor at that time, he said, be careful what you vote for, because you will be punished. Okay. We have a builder here today who comes here and tells us he's in contract to look to buy a piece of property, but doesn't know exactly what he wants to do with it or build to it. He doesn't know what the cost of the property is. He's not telling you that. But I find it incredible that a builder would come in and not know what his cost is going to be in order to build a project. That's really unheard of. And congratulations, because you're probably one of the first builders I ever came across who did that. Okay? And I don't really believe that you really think that. And as far as the attorney goes, the learned attorney, what he said about that building that we want to preserve, and it should be, it's a treasure to this village. If he says it costs $10 million to revamp that building, boy, his nose is growing, okay? I don't believe that it would be a $10 million building to revamp that. To take it down would probably cost just as much, so keep that in mind, okay? So when he says to you, we don't know what we want to do with the property, the engineering firm, they should know, because they are being directed, okay, to what they should build. And by the way, it's a nice little thing there, but it doesn't apply to us. It goes into Garden City, right? But why don't we have what could happen in Port Jefferson? Why don't we have a rendering? It's your money. You should know. I mean, you're going to a birthday
Roger.
party and don't know what
Don't
to
address
expect.
them, address us.
Okay? I mean, he's going to a birthday party, this builder, and doesn't know what to expect. Okay? You have the church who wants to sell $10 million.
20 million.
20 million, wow. And if he knocks it down, it's a $30 million site. The numbers do not work, unless if you have a magic wand. We need to preserve that building, no question, okay? But I think before you change the zoning, we need to know what's going on that property, and exactly how many units and everything, how much land would be cleared, what's permissible or not. We don't change the zoning and then he comes to us. Wrong. We are in the driver's seat here, okay? We need to know exactly what he's going to do prior to the zone changing, because we will be punished. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Take Michael and then Arthur.
Michael Mart, Port Jefferson. I understand what you want to do to save the building. That's your primary goal. I'd like to know, if we could, by a show of hands, how many people in this room have seen the building? Been on the property to see the building? Okay. All right.
Did you look behind you, Michael?
Yeah.
You did?
I'm sorry?
Did you look behind you to see the show of hands?
I saw quite a few.
Okay.
That's what I want to know. Okay, what is the building that we're saving? What part of it? It has many different there are wings to it, there's a back to it, there are sides to it, or is it just the facade?
It's the, where's my highlighter? It's this entire footprint here.
The red roof section. Okay, and all of the exterior walls?
Not all.
Okay.
Because of this back parcel, that's the new addition. Yes, the exterior wall that's underneath the red roof section.
There is the new addition. That's not part of it. So it's basically the front of it that we would see.
The entire structure, except the rear walls here, my understanding is what we're saving.
Okay.
We're trying to save.
Trying to save.
Well, my understanding is that would be clear to the Board of Trustees before voting on whether or not it was, sort of the step one of this is, does they come to the Board of Trustees and say, here are our plans, here are the specifics, this is exactly what we would be saving, and then the board would discuss and determine, because if they came forward and said, we're saving this door, and, can we please have the rest of the conditions, then no, but if they're saving enough of something, then that would be part of the determination. Is that true? 100%. Great, thank you.
Right.
It's a long drawn out to say that's absolutely correct, but yes, it's didn't mean to build that drama up, but you're right, because that's part of what we're trying to trigger with this special permit. That if you come in and going to present one wall or one beam and say, hey, look, we preserved that, do not pass go, do not collect $200, or what did Roger say? 20 million? Where's Roger? Did Roger leave? 20 million, Roger. That was the number you said before, right? Do not pass that go. Don't do it, because you've got to preserve this. If you don't get it, you don't get past the Board of Trustees on a special permit, because now you're not contributing to the architectural or aesthetic value and character of the village.
So to get the special permit would increase the value of the property, no doubt. They're willing to invest a considerable amount of money to do that, and that's understandable. It's a business decision. I want to offer an alternative, if I may, of thinking about this. In the United States, governmental bodies at all levels, including federal all the way down to the village, have an obligation to promote and often provide resources for the general welfare of its population. In Port Jefferson, land, as it and its allowed uses is becoming a very precious resource for the promotion of the welfare of its residents. Almost everywhere in our country, we learn of the need to address a plan for changes that will affect the future of those who follow our tenure here, especially when it comes to the threat of anticipated causes of greater degrees of flooding already experienced here. With regard to the issue before us here, I have heard some people indicate that because of increased flooding, if our fire department does not move to higher ground, that its call to action may have it be a last responder and not a first responder. I speak for myself, not for the fire department, but I've heard that. I have heard others talk of the property of your code change concerns, the abandoned Maryhaven property at the height of Myrtle Avenue and Belterre Road as a potential location for the fire department, and then tonight someone else said even another municipal building, our own, right here. I encourage you to reconsider your proposed code change that would most likely preclude the possibility of providing for the opportunity of the Maryhaven property for the fire department use. This goal may entail the use, the goal that I'm suggesting, may entail the use of eminent domain to reserve the property as a means to promote and provide for our general welfare in ways that cannot be provided by that property's use as condominiums. Once it's condominiums, that's what it's going to be. Our hospitals need property. Our downtown needs property for parking and other encouragements for our commercial districts. Please reconsider this. Think of the future, not my future here, and maybe not many of the people who are here. We know something is coming, and we have to plan for it. This does not plan for it. Mr. Egan, with all due respect to the planning board, when someone asked, well, how are they going to deal with their water? You said they would have a responsibility to do that. They're going to have to deal with a lot more water, generally speaking, the earth. I experienced what happened when the planning board did its due diligence on a Father's Day a number of years ago. Their whole sump blew out, came roaring down Thompson Street and almost destroyed my business and my building and the properties alongside of it. It can happen. There are no promises. I know you know that, but there's a history to it. Please rethink this. Please, do we really need more condominiums over what we may really need in the future? Thank you very much.
Eminent domain.
With eminent domain, Brian, isn't it true that the municipality would have to pay current value of the property? So we would have to come up with $20 million?
Yes.
Bond?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, we'd have to pay fair market value.
And
Current value is determined by use. If you don't give them the use, the current value should go down.
Correct, but the bad part is if they're in contract already,
Well,
that's
they
going to
haven't
set
gotten
the fair market value, right? Correct, they haven't got it
There
yet,
are
but
contingencies in that contract.
Right,
I
but
would be
I just
surprised
need
if
to
there
make
wasn't.
clear that a municipality just doesn't get to whip out eminent domain. There has to be a public purpose.
Our fire department
I
can do
understand
it.
that.
It
So
doesn't have
if
to
the
be
fire
Port
department, this parcel is, as of right, can be a fire department today.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Just-
I'm not saying
I'm
that
not,
the
it's
village
not
has
that
to do
we've
it.
been keeping it a secret or anything.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is by granting this special permit to save the facade of a building, you're precluding the possibility of a future that we may need.
Understood. I don't know. Ryan, did the fire department ever look at this parcel? Ryan Walker, we have a fire department member? Okay, all right, sorry. No more fire department members. Is Nick? Did you guys ever look at this parcel? I'm sorry, Nick.
I really can't speak for the chief. So
Okay.
it's up to the commission.
All right, no problem.
There's been discussions and rumors, but I can't really speak on that.
Okay, sorry to put you on the spot. Virginia.
Hi, Virginia Cape on 11 Overton Avenue.
Poor Jeff. Mayor, Board of Trustees, thank you for your service. I haven't visited with you guys in a really long time. But I'm a little confused, actually, because my understanding is that this property is in the PO zone, correct?
Yeah, we did the how we got here earlier.
Right.
With Brian.
So it looks like the code provision that's looking to be modified is the section dealing with the RM zone.
That is correct.
And I just don't quite understand why a change to the RM zone would have an impact on the PO zone.
Brian can lead you there.
I apologize, I didn't make that clear. So the PO zone, if you're going to allow a residential use in a PO zone, it references the RM zone. It cross-references that as one of the conditional uses. So that's how you get there.
You can put RM in the PO as a conditional use?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now I understand it. I do applaud the idea of historic preservation. I was the chair of the master plan committee before I quit. And, you know, I believe in the small town historic maritime character of this village. And that building is beautiful. But I don't know that this is the way to preserve it. And, you know, you've heard other people, you know, suggest alternatives, but I'm wondering if the board has considered, you know, a historic preservation overlay district that goes beyond just the PO zone or the RM zone, because the zoning map hasn't been changed in quite some time. And I think my biggest concern is that this is like, you would know this, Mr. Egan, like almost like a spot zoning, because it's so targeted, as you said, Margot, it's for this property, and that's not really how you're supposed to change the zone.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the master plan.
Okay, so anyway, so I think
because the master plan actually overrides any, because there's a recommendation in the master plan for the PO and the RM. Brian, we talked about that in the work session. Can you remind us on that provision, please?
So the master plan actually provides that, encourages the conversion of in PO to housing. That's a provision, page 19 of the comprehensive plan actually provides for that.
Well, I don't recall because as you know, I quit. But, you know, it wasn't going in the direction that my board was advocating at the time. So we you know, sort of walked away from the master plan. But, you know, I get it. You can put an RM zone in the PO, and we have a fair amount of it already. I want to echo the comments from others who have said density is a very big concern in this village. In the last, I think, 6 or 7 years, we have increased the number of houses by 5%. If you recall, very recently, the state budget there's a lot of talk about requiring an increase of 3% in housing in every municipality. Thankfully, that's not in the budget, so, you know, they're back to the drawing board on that. But this village has increased the number of houses enormously.
You mean apartments or houses?
Doesn't matter. Mostly apartments. Condos,
okay.
Rentals. It's mostly rentals, actually, but there's still more coming. So really, I would like to encourage this board to look out beyond this property, look at the totality of if it's 180 units or if it's 90 units. What does that really say about the sustainability of, you know, how, you know, our community? We are a very small village. It's 3 square miles. You know, most of the village is not connected to the sewer. The 2 hospitals are, and therefore I think everyone on Belterre Road is, so there's a huge incentive to get hooked up to that sewer if you can build on, you know, in that area. But, you know, when I first became active under the leadership of your mother, Margot, we were trying to get the sewer extended to the residential areas in our village because we have the burden of that plant in our village. We pay for it, but we don't get the benefit. So, you know, the increase in apartments is, you know, good up to a point, but it's all about the number. And I just think we shouldn't be looking at just one project when we're talking about a change of the zoning. Because zoning is something that you really need to look at the totality of the zoning in the village as opposed to a spot zoning. So that's all I have. And on the other thing I would say is tree clearing. I also worked very closely with your mother on the first tree clearing and steep slope ordinance.
And I think it was this administration that actually adopted and passed it.
No, it was before you. It was your mom.
We can double check.
Yeah, there was many mayors between you and your mom, but two. It was a long time. Anyway, you know, those limits, and I appreciate the CAC, you know, paying attention to that. You know, they're not adhered to. They're just not. Our village isn't really holding the line, and I think you're hearing a lot of people wanting to, you know, not look like Queens with no trees eventually. And we have to have vision. So, you know, Canyon Creek is right below this project. It was a steep slope nightmare. The slopes are very important to leave alone, and they are often the last thing that's developed because they're steep. And so when we have so little space left, we got to be extra careful. And I don't support tabletop development, which is you take a steep slope, you build high retaining walls, you get a nice flat project, and yes, you get more density that way, but it's not consistent with the 7 hills of Port. So I really want to encourage this board to honor our history and honor you know, what we have and love in terms of the steepness. And if you can come up with a way of preserving that building that maybe doesn't overdevelop the parcel, that would be my recommendation, and not as a zone change. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Arthur. And then I'll do Mr. Calabrese. And I'm going to close the hearing because we're going to open it up. We're going to keep it open for public comment for Art.
Arthur Epp, 206 East Main Street. I feel compelled to comment because I was born and raised in Garden City, and I drove by St. Paul's just last week. It is a debacle. It is a travesty. They have a fence around the edifice itself, though they still use the side yard, which is substantial for soccer and other activities. I wanted to comment because I don't know if Mr. Egan is familiar with the story of the Garden City Hotel.
Oh, sure, yes.
It became a part of my childhood narrative, if you will. In the middle of Garden City was a hotel that presidents stayed at, a king stayed at, and I believe Charles Lindbergh, the night before his transatlantic flight, stayed at. It was a magnificent edifice. It was centrally located. Then it became the ultimate planning nightmare, and I guarantee you it's a nightmare superseding anything that any planning board in this incorporated village has ever dealt with. What ended up happening was the building was leveled to the dismay of many, and I'm not exaggerating, some people were so upset they left the community. Then what was erected was at the time what some people called a glorified Holiday Inn. Granted, today, most people accept the Garden City Hotel with its 5-star restaurant as a nice place to visit, and a lot of people go there for special occasions and even stay there after their wedding. But at the time, it left a wound on the community that was substantial, and I don't know if it's the case, but it's possible that this wound has existed for generations, and that might be one of the reasons why St. Paul is in this state of, I don't know how you would call it. I am a...
Purgatory was the word.
Purgatory.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's funny, I didn't want to mention it, but I also was a friend of a Catholic nun who spent many years serving in this building also. So I have sentimental attachments. So from my history as a citizen of Garden City and seeing different projects go awry there, I actually am a proponent of saving this edifice if and only if we can soften the environmental impact that comes thereafter. Thank you.
I had Mr. Calabrese. I'm going to take one last comment from Zena. Mr. Zamek, you're it, and then we got to move on to our other business. I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and we'll hold the public comment period open. Ray.
Food for thought.
Name and address, please.
Oh, Ray Calabrese, Myrtle Avenue, downstream from the project. But that's later on, we'll talk about that. But this is food for thought. My ancestors saved the Coliseum. My generation tore down Yankee Stadium.
Thank you, Ray. Zena, and then Mr. Zamek.
Hi, Zena Ugrinsky, 2 Rosita Lane, Port Jefferson. Congratulations to you as a developer. I do some fairly large municipal projects. I think many of you on the board kind of know the sort of work that I do. When I go to purchase a project like this, right, there are certain things I have to do in advance that I do basically on my own dime in order to do things like speak to the public and make sure that they have time to weigh in, that they see the environmental impact, the density impact. I think someone earlier said something about, like, you guys hold all the cards right now. There's really no need to rush a zone change through, because you could make the counter request to say, until you vote on the zone, let's do the environmental study, let's do the density study, right? And I do it for most of the deals that I do ahead of any transaction. So why don't we have the opportunity to look at those things before we make a zoning change?
Are you asking us to? I'm sorry.
I'm asking you to hold off.
Okay.
On voting about the zoning change until we actually see the data.
What data?
The data on the environmental impact, the data on the density impact, right? Traffic study. Like, those things should be done before you make a decision like changing the zoning law. And that's my request.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to respond to that and relay just a different perspective. Over in St. James right now, across from my family home on Mills Pond Road, Bull Run Farm, had a assisted living facility proposed for that site. In town of Smithtown, there's an overlay district that allows anywhere in the town of Smithtown to be considered, amongst other things, an assisted living facility. This is in the zoning there is 1 acre property, so it's the least dense zoning, but a developer came forward and spent 2 years of their time, which, with all due respect, it's, that investment, I understand, is something developers make, but as I've watched this process go through, I see that the Smithtown Township spent, the building department's time, all of the time of their staff members looking at a project before it then came to the public. 2 years of staff time, went through, and then when it finally came into the light, and the board said, go have not a public hearing yet, but just go have a public meeting. There were not literal pitchforks there, but there might as well have been. And so the board of the Smithtown Town Board, who had to vote on a special permission of sorts, saw this and said, ooh, no, okay, no thank you, the public doesn't want this. And so I have that perspective coming and looking at this, because I don't want our village staff, funded by taxpayers, already a bit tight on time, to have to work with a project for a number of years, or even up to a year, and then find out that it's not something that the public is going to stomach. So I just want to offer that perspective as far as why are we talking about this now? We want to talk to you first before working with developers, having our staff work with developers, and then come to a point where we realize, oops, that the public has no tolerance for what we're talking about.
Thanks, Rebecca. I think that helped. Scott? Mr. Zamek. Attorney Zamek.
Good evening. Scott Zamek, 20 Sands, Port Jeff. Just a quickie question. I'm wondering why we haven't or somebody hasn't pursued historic or landmark status for the building.
And what would that
That would save
bring?
the building without having to play the give and take with the developer on density.
Brian?
There you go. Get this right. So we don't have that we have historic preservation.
Not in the village, Brian. I mean, either on the state level or the national level.
Oh, okay. So I would say that's really a question for the property owner, the Catholic Health, because if you apply for those, there are all sorts of regulations from the Department of Interior that apply to that structure. And it could even apply to the grounds that the structure's on. So it's really up to the owner to do that, to pursue that. But
Do you know that? I mean,
yeah,
it's something that the village can't initiate.
So National Historic Places designations are approved by the United States Department of the Interior, and then the state SHPO, State Historic Preservation Recreation Office, now it's called Parks. It used to be Parks, now it's state. They put in regulations on what you can and cannot do with that site. You can't.
But we can't, speak to our senator or Congress. I mean, there's no way to initiate that process on, from our end.
We don't have the designation in the village code, but anybody, it's really up to the owner. It's up to the owner.
Okay. All right. Well, I just thought that as a way around having to, bargain.
So a municipality couldn't go for that designation on a private property, is what you're saying? Because it's privately owned, the property owner would have to do that?
Yes.
Got it.
You're sure of that?
Yep. Yep.
Nick?
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, Scott, just to answer your question, we did this with the Brookhaven, what is now Caton Hale, that building, the bank building. So when it was threatened with potential demolition by a potential developer, we petitioned to get it on the state registry. The Historical Society initiated that with Brookhaven Town, but Brookhaven Town had to agree to have it registered.
Correct.
And that still doesn't prevent, even on state registry and on federal registry, does not prevent the building from being demolished.
Correct.
And that's the other part
the
of this.
distinction I want to make, that if you're going to actually qualify for the Department of Interior regulations to prevent demolition, that's a different category than that.
Correct. So there is a large process. Even if we all agreed we wanted that building preserved, forget about the zoning and everything else for a second. If we still want to, we'll take the bank building, for instance. When we understood that bank building had a potential of demolition, being sold to a private developer in Brookhaven Town, we initiated that, but Brookhaven Town had to agree because they had to have the final signature, and they did. We went to the town board meetings, and they willingly did so.
Correct.
But that's part of that process, and we certainly could. That's a process that's a lot of documentation, because we've done it on other buildings as well, so
Right,
it takes a while.
To that point, they owned the building at the time. So they were a willing partner.
That's correct.
Correct.
Exactly.
So we're back to the point of you need the owner, but the real thing you're trying to prevent here is to Scott's point, is the demolition. And that's a whole different can of worms.
That's correct.
Right, okay.
Point of order, no, if you want to come to the podium and finish your comment. We're not making a deal.
Part of this process is to work something out to mutually agreeable between the village and the developer. If we don't modify the code, then there is the threat of the demolition, which is why you're thinking about modifying the code.
Well, so so basically, again, when we workshopped on this about 18 months ago or so, we were, we looked at, permitted uses, possible uses, and we said, why are we going to try and create code for this particular property when we don't know what its purpose will be? So if somebody came to us today and wanted to build a medical park, we wouldn't be sitting in this room except to try and save the building.
So that person who wants to come and do the medical park, they can demolish the building.
They have the right to do that unless,
So what I'm saying is if we don't work this out now to allow this developer to do what they want to do in conjunction with saving the building, there is the threat that the next guy is going to demo
yeah, I
the
mean,
building.
I can't, if they want to, if,
So in other words, to Brian's point that, well, they were trying to stop the demolition of that other building, isn't that, the same logic
I
here?
think the general consensus of the community was to try and save the building, right? So we're trying to save this building, okay? If,
Right.
if
No, I
you guys
understand
don't
that.
want the building saved, you guys can, it's not the facade. And
Okay, no, I just thought that's
we're trying to
another way
use
save
whatever
the
mechanism
building.
we have in the code to do this.
Right.
Right? So this is we're here because of the village code and the mechanism, and this is really the first question, of impression of us wanting to accept, for the property up on Upper Sheep, which we were ready to condemn and take down before Senator Assemblyman Engelbright came to us.
So the old bank building was owned by the town?
Was owned by
But so when you preserved it, it was no longer owned by the town?
No, it was owned by the town. The town then
Sold it to the developer with the historic. Okay. Again, I was just trying to figure out a way.
Has anyone started that conversation with the property owner at all, ever?
No, not from.
Seems like it would be, in earnest, a great conversation to have.
Well, that would be whether they want to save the building. If they don't want to save, they want to sell the property. If they don't want to save the building, if that's not in their best interest when they're selling the building, they're not going to want to partner with us unless we have another intended use for it, which I don't think that's the village government's role, is to, say what should happen on on the properties. This is,
Agree on that.
we're here because we have an potential applicant who is in contract with a timeline, who has worked through the attorney channel to bring to us an opportunity, a way for us to save this building on this parcel. That's why we're here tonight. Any other comments? Because otherwise we're going to move on with our general business meeting.
Mayor,
and Brian, what do you think? Hold the public comment open until
14 days or 2 weeks, written comments. 30 days.
what can happen in 14
Right here,
days that
45.
can't happen in 30?
30 days is fine. If you.
You can say,
Can we look into that historic preservation concept, that if it's historically preserved, and just
not-
get a real opinion on the
we can
on how it can be preserved, and
So we have some time to discuss that on whether that's even viable for this property, with a property owner who's trying to maximize, who has a fiduciary duty to maximize their sale as well, and then restore it back to the tax rolls. So we can
of course they are.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But
that's why. So we need a willing partner, but we can discuss that.
Okay.
so we'll hold a public comment period open for 21 days. We're moving on.
All right, I'm just I didn't get a chance to circle back to the one point that I'd like to make as a trustee, to give information to people who are.
Rebecca?
Thank you.
2 minutes.
Oh, I get the clock. There's been concerns about the building height and the number of stories, and when we entered into this conversation again, we had seen a sketch of a site plan that included building into the slopes on the periphery, and that means more clearing. There's, as we've heard tonight, there's concerns about touching those slopes, both for the wooded aspect of them, but also they are slopes, and so this is part of our physical heritage, and it's also just we've learned to try to not build into slopes. So in the discussion about density, instead of going out, the conversation turned around to going up instead, because there was the precedent of this building that's 70 some odd feet tall. There's the precedent of the hospital next door. And because if these wooded areas remain, you have that encapsulation of forest to sort of surround this area. And so that, again, if we all do want to save the building, it's not going, by loosening restrictions, there's something, we have to give something. And so looking at this complicated picture, we're looking at trying to give some density without sacrificing the things that we're expressing are important to the community. So what does that balance look like? Again, I'm looking forward to hearing more public comments. I appreciate hearing all of the public comments tonight, but I just wanted to shed light on that concept of, again, instead of being asked to go out, we're proposing going up as the balance.
Okay, so we're going to
Rebecca
go to...
said something that I would just want to clarify, because I wasn't under the impression that there was any building into the slope. Can somebody from
I don't have a site
Beachwood-
plan, guys. I mean,
Well, Rebecca said she saw something where they were building into the slope, but I don't know that I saw that. Okay.
well, no, you can answer the question, but then I really want to move on. It's 8:45.
Conversation tonight about taking trees down. My background's landscaping. I hate taking trees down. So the site right now is about, these are round numbers, 65 to 70% clear. The uncleared area is basically the steep slope towards Myrtle and the perimeter along Belterre. Those areas are not going to be touched under this plan. The trustee is right. There was a very small area that encroached into the slope that I think you wanted us to avoid. But by and large, the cleared area is what we would anticipate developing. And I'm sorry to take your time.
No, Michael, thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the trustees' reports. I'll start to my far right with Trustee Shepro and work our way across. Everybody else who's not here for the public meeting, that would be good. Trustee Shepro, you want to?
I never get to go first.
I'm hoping it's quick.
So I just have a quick update on the recreation department. If anybody wants to hear, if anybody is an intermediate tennis player and would like to join Ladder League, it's free for Port Jeff residents, and it's for, like I said, intermediate players only. This is co-ed, and it will take place down in the Kipley Park. And there's a new art show on the second floor of the Village Center, and it features 7 local artists running starting today through June 2nd. The artists are Gail Chase, Mary Cochran, Ellen Ferrigno, Leslie Hand, Kathleen McArdle, Barbara Siegel, and Susan Trewick, sorry. And so that, and the other thing I wanted to indicate is that we had a meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council last week, and one of the things that we are looking at, because it's been brought to our attention on a number of occasions, is that the Village Center could really benefit from some increased security services there. So we're looking into that to see how we can't impact the safety of the more than 100,000 people that come through that building on an annual basis, not including the parties and the skaters and the other planned events, rentals that take place in that building. So that's my update.
Thanks, Rebecca. I'll go to my far left with Rebecca. Thank you.
She's Lauren.
We're twinning.
I'm Rebecca,
yeah.
you just said.
Thanks,
Lauren's
Lauren.
Rebecca.
To my far left with Rebecca.
Very good. So on my list to just put out there tonight, there are there's one committee and one task force that's opening up and being established, and we are calling out to residents who might be interested in participating. The one is the Port Jefferson Village Tree Committee, which will specifically be looking at the village-owned property and right-of-ways and working on assessing what trees are currently there, and also then the next step would be to look to how to responsibly revegetate, retree those areas. So we're looking for folks interested and with a background-related work in that. And then also the Election Amendment Task Force. We've gotten a couple of names so far. These would be folks who are looking into different precedents and discussing for our village issues like term lengths, term limits, and the date of our election, whether it's in June or March, which are our two options as a village. So if you are interested in either or both of these opportunities, please email any of your trustees. I put my email address here. Please indicate interest by Thursday, May 11th, so that we can get those names together and discuss them at the next board meeting and keep them moving forward. Another deadline, actually this Saturday, May 6th, is the last day that you can fill out the survey in conjunction with the climate resilience presentation that was given here about a month ago. We really, really, really want to hear from you residents to let us as the village know what is important to you as we look at climate resilience with a focus on flood mitigation. So we have like 19 responses so far. So every one of those voices are being heard, very dearly looked at. And so this is an opportunity for you as residents to make your voice heard, and have those comments really change the direction of the village. So please go to our YouTube channel, watch the presentation. It's about half hour long, plus questions and answers, and then fill out that survey. The link is on the YouTube video. If you have any trouble accessing that, please email and let me know. Lastly, at the Beach Street Community Garden, things are bumping along there. We have a volunteer event this Wednesday at the garden property on Beach Street from 12 to 1 p.m. We're going to be planting some of those native shrub saplings that many of you picked up at the Antiques and Garden Weekend, which was a wonderful event. Thank you to all. I see Catherine Quinlan's here, all of our Historical Society members who helped put that on. It was a great joy in the village. So we were there handing out native shrub saplings and tree saplings. We have a few left that we're going to put on that Port Jefferson Village Parkland to beautify it. So if you want to come help us, again, noon this Wednesday, and that's followed by a tour of the community garden. We're welcoming residents, community members, and the Sawasset Garden Club will be coming for that tour. So if you want to just join for the tour, you're welcome to do that too around 1 o'clock. And that's my update for today.
Thanks, Rebecca. Trustee Laux, Stan.
Okay, is this working? Thank you, Kev. Very quick report from the country club. Our golf course conditions are improving on a daily basis. Our membership is very strong this year. As I reported at the last meeting, we've had some severe damage to our golf course because of this extended drought that we had last summer, 20 some odd days without water. I'm going to talk a little bit about the water situation later on in my report. I've got about 10 pages here. We presently have 530 memberships, which converts to 609 members. The difference there is that we have a number of corporate memberships with many members, and we do have some family memberships. Our club revenue has exceeded our budget already, and we still have 1 month to go. So we're pretty excited about that. This past year, our fund balance has been used for repairs to our well, which broke down and had to be replaced. We built 2 retaining walls. We extended the patio. We refurbished the scoreboard. We built a new fire pit, and we built a permanent barbecue area that can be used if you want to come up with members and have a barbecue. Be my guest up there. It's a nice facility. With reference to the water restrictions that I mentioned earlier, last year the drought really intensified the lowering of the aquifer to the point where we began to draw alkaline water, and that was the reason why our fairways, many of our fairways, resulted in extreme damage. We all need to be aware of and understand that the aquifer all across Long Island is receding. And with that in mind, we've come up with an idea of capturing some runoff water. We certainly had a lot of it this weekend. The plan that we have engaged in is to capture that water that runs down that sluice way right off of Old Homestead Road That water goes down, it goes under Old Homestead Road, and it goes into that large catch basin that washed out a couple of years ago. There's a concrete sluiceway that runs right down along hole number 8 on our golf course that probably over the weekend dumped 200,000, maybe more gallons of water into that large area across the road. We've brought in a golf course architect to design about where we could put some ponds, and we're also bringing in an engineering firm to show us how to capture that water and possibly store it in those ponds, and that could help us with our irrigation problems, because we do have a limit on the number of gallons that we can use up there. DEC is control of the amount of water that we can pump. Just to give you an idea, if we water one night all of our fairways, we go through about 300,000 gallons of water. We have a $10 million limit on the golf course. 10 million gallons. Yes. It sounds like a lot of water, but it's about half of what most golf courses require to keep their fairways, and we're talking 125 acres of greenery up there. So that's one system that we're working on. We hope to get to first base with it. A quick update on the bluff work. I couldn't wait to get up this morning to run down and look at the bluff. With all the rain that we had, I didn't see one bit of erosion in that bluff. What they're doing now, and they're almost finished, on the east side, they roll heavy-duty burlap down the bluff. 2 guys go down that burlap, and they punch holes every 3 feet, and they're putting seedlings through the burlap into the bluff. And with the rain that we had this past weekend, I was really concerned about it, and I had to go down this morning, and it's working. There was no erosion whatsoever on that bluff, at least from the rain coming down. I don't know what's going to happen on the bottom side. We have some engineering drawings for the construction of 3 tennis courts and 6 pickleball courts. We have no timeline for this construction. Everything is going to be dependent upon the completion of the work up at the, on the bluff. Right now, we're presently looking at all of our parks in the village to see if we can make better use of them. Dave Melios, who's the Parks Department head, and I looked at every single park today. We know that we will be adding another park very shortly. The 6-acre park is going to come into play. Many of the parks are already designated recreational sites, and some are not. Some are in need of upgrading, and perhaps some need to be developed to accommodate some activities. We visited Roosevelt Park today. Roosevelt is one of those fairly large green areas still left in the village that gets little or no use whatsoever. The Parks and Recreations Committee is going to be taking a tour of these parks at our next meeting, and we're going to be working on plans for usage of some of the other areas that are not being used at the present time. Our beaches, both East and West Beach, will open on June 24th. They may open sooner, but lifeguards will not be there. It seems like the lower bluff work is way ahead of schedule, so those beaches are going to open. The bathrooms at East Beach have been totally overhauled, and the bathrooms at West Beach have had a facelift, which is just a paint job. The kayak racks have all been assigned. If you did not receive your notification or have a concern about your location, please do not hesitate to contact either me or Village Hall downstairs. And we can make arrangements to move your kayak if you're up too high, or we do have some open spots. And that is my report.
Thank you, Stan. Deputy Mayor Staden, please.
Yeah, a couple things to report on tonight. I've been working on speed mitigation on Brook Road, as many of you already know. And working with the DPW, one of the things that they came up with in their research and their knowledge in working with roadways in general is one of the most efficient, cost-effective, least impact to taxpayers way to quickly mitigate a speed on a wide roadway is to do some strategic painting. And that included on this road adding a visual median. It narrows a wide roadway. It creates a visual that somebody will stop to look at as they're proceeding, and it causes them to slow down. So that has been done by our DPW department. After that was done, we met out on the street with our school district as well. As you know, the fields run along Brook Road there, the football field, the baseball field, the track. And some of the concerns along the roadway has been parking along the track and the football field and the buses that come in and drop kids off. And in speaking with the school district, one of the things we came up with is to move the parking, to not allow parking right along the field where the road is most narrow, and bring it down to the bottom of the roadway near the curve where it's much, much wider, where we could add designated parking spots on the roadway. Do some tree cutting above. There's some really low limbs that are danger of causing an issue on the roadway, and open up that area and allow parking where it is safe for people to park. So that is in the works. We have agreed today during our business meeting downstairs to put on for public hearing at our next meeting that code change to prohibit parking on the roadway adjacent to the field and move it down. I understand that that could potentially cause more parking on the side streets in that area. So because of that, I don't want to put on for public hearing quite yet those streets, because a lot of the feedback I've gotten in speaking to the residents that I do know in that area is that they don't want to limit parking there. So if they have parties or they have people over, they don't want to have no parking on their streets, but they don't want an increase of parking during field events. So it's kind of a catch-22. So I would rather have those conversations initially, and I asked Mr. Egan if we can specifically send out letters to those homeowners in that area to be aware of this public hearing, because I do want to hear from them, and I have a feeling we're going to get very mixed opinions, but there are ways to overcome those particular issues that I'm also working on. But I think moving that parking down at the bottom of the hill is going to be safest for everyone. As this is a multi-layer step process to do what's best for that area. We are additionally speaking to the school district in putting a sidewalk on their property on that side. So now that's going to take the walkers off the street, put them on the sidewalk. It's the school property where we're looking to do that, or where they're looking to do that. Mrs. Schmatan had mentioned that there is funding available for such this type of sidewalk. In working in conjunction with them, our DPW got some price estimates so we can kind of get the ball rolling and assist them in having an idea of what it will cost and if that funding is available. So that's in the works as well. Obviously, that's a much longer process. And whether or not it has to be ADA compliant and all that is going to come into play on that area. And then the last bit of the last layer to that is I tried to last year put the speed trailer there, the speed trailer that I had brought in a couple of years ago that we move around the village. But because that road is so narrow where the speeding is an issue, there's not a safe place to put it. So we had to put it at the base of the roadway where we're talking about adding this parking where it's wide enough to accommodate, but that's also where the speed tables are. So everybody's naturally slowing down at the bottom of that hill anyway, so it wasn't an accurate representation of what the speed really is. So I'm having our DPW look into some speed signs similar to the ones we have going down the hill on East Broadway, where it's a speed sign, and underneath it is a smaller sign that says your speed is. And that's a permanent sign that would go in. It's solar powered, and we can put those further up the road. So I believe this multi-layered approach, working directly with the school district, talking to the residents, and working with our highway department, I think is going to be the best solution that we have. If anybody else has any other ideas that we can add another layer on top of that to add safety and speed mitigation, I would be more than willing to hear that and implement it if possible. Sorry that was so long, but many moving parts to that. With our code department, as we know, our chief left the department month or so ago, a couple months ago, and I've been working, you can ask my kids, around the clock, 7 days a week with our department. I initially want to thank every member of that department. We have Joe Caracci in the room. Thank you for sitting here tonight throughout the entire meeting, and for all you do to keep this village safe. And to the guys that have stepped up in the chief's absence, offered to help each other. Our acting chief might not be the best with technology, but we have other officers that stepped up to help him, and that brotherhood and that camaraderie has been fantastic to see. So I applaud every one of our officers for doing so. Building the morale back up after a loss is not easy to do. So I've been working very, very hard at getting that done. We are also rebuilding the department structurally, and there are internal promotions that need to happen to fill spaces. And in doing that, one of the things we're working on as well is a recruitment initiative to bring in new officers to fill in the holes where we need them and to do the jobs that need to get done. Another initiative we're starting is called a community response team that will be a lot of on-the-street work, out of the cars and walking the streets, connecting with the business owners, finding out what their specific needs are and answering those specific needs immediately, or bringing that right back to the department, me as a liaison, and getting stuff done quicker rather than later. Speaking to residents on the street, tourists, and being ambassadors, not just code officers. So I think that working hand in hand is going to help change the entire environment of how people deal with and see our code officers, hopefully gain respect for the jobs that they do, because that's what we need in this village. I want to bring back our bicycle task force. That was something that I had started a while back that kind of went away. I need to bring that back. We've seen an influx of the bicycles coming back to the town. We see the teenagers out and about doing the things that they're doing, and I think that bicycle task force was one good way to get on the same level with the kids that are doing this, to gain a mutual respect, and not just hit them with violations, but help them to understand how responsible usage of their bicycles and being in our community is helpful for everyone, including them. So I'm working on that as well. I talked about the recruitment initiative. And then another thing, if any of you are on Facebook, on our community pages, you'll see there's been a couple of complaints or recounts of alleged incidences that have happened in the village. One of them happened to be on a Friday night. I thought I was done working for the week, and this came up, and it was extremely concerning. It was about 30 bicyclists attacking a child, a couple of children who had to run into Chase Bank to protect themselves, and these 30 angry kids on bikes pounded on the windows trying to get their bike from them, and it was extremely troubling. So just as I had sat down with my daughters to finally say, okay, Mom's putting the phone down, we're going to watch a movie, this incident came up. So I worked into the night, trying to investigate this, figure out what the heck happened, speaking to our code officers. I asked for video to corroborate what happened. I watched 3 hours of video, and none of it happened the way that it was accounted for. I asked for more information. I found out some other kids that were with this one student and spoke to their parents and found out that, yes, they did go into Chase Bank, but it was to get money for pizza. It was extremely troubling, the amount of hours spent researching this. So I guess the moral of the story is when things are heard and there's, this might have happened, please don't jump on Facebook. Don't go to, the alarmist post that gets everybody riled up and, gets me away from my kids late on a Friday night. Look into it, call me personally, email me, I'll get that, we'll look into it, speak to our code department. Code was never called, the police were never called. So it's very hard for us to do our jobs when this stuff is flying around. So I'm just asking everyone to be a little more responsible, think before hitting that post button. I'm always available. I'm there. I will give anybody my phone number, my personal email, whatever it might be, but let's all look out for each other and use our resources to the best way we can and keep everybody safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy Ann. Sorry to hear that, but I'm glad to hear that. I have a very simple report. I first and foremost want to thank Barbara Sakovich, who's made it to 13 years today as our initially she started out as the mayor's assistant. She worked and earned every step of her way to become the village clerk. And congratulations, Barbara, on surviving 312 meetings. And I think there's only one yeah. I think there's only one person in the room who's done more than you, and that might be me. So almost bittersweet, second to last meeting. And there's only one thing I want to report on tonight, and that is Shakespeare in the Park. It's a very positive thing. We have a nice group of actors who are doing Shakespeare in the Park who would like to use our park on the stage that we built there for that intended purpose. So hopefully this summer we'll have a little Shakespeare in the Park. And with that positive note, I'm going to open it up for additional public comment, and hopefully we get home in a reasonable hour this evening. But I know Myrna Gordon wants to say one more thing. But I give you credit, Myrna. You hung the whole night and listened. Yeah, my next public meeting in June is going to be my last meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. In this format.
Yeah, I have a question. Stan, in your report, you mentioned that Parks and Recreation is going to be touring different of the parcels of land. And what I would like to ask you is the Roosevelt Area Park, okay, is something that I've been very concerned about over almost 50 years. Are the residents in that area, Roosevelt, Rustic, and Wilson, will they have an opportunity to meet with Parks and Recreation before any decisions are made as to how that property will be utilized? That would be really important for the residents. Just as the residents of the Highlands had input in the 6-acre park, I would hope that Parks and Recreation, that we don't wake up one morning and say, hey, this is what's going to happen there.
We've already had some contact with the people up there. I know that Deputy Mayor Snaden spoke with some of the people up there, and I know Dave did.
Okay, I'm on Rustic Road, don't forget me. Okay.
Dave Melios has spoken to the people up there.
Can you tell me offhand what some of the proposals might be, if there are any, at this time?
I think that has to wait until we discuss it with the rec department. All I'm doing is identifying the parks and.
Can I weigh in? Mm-hmm. So there's about 14 kids who've moved into the neighborhood, young families. And I think they're going to the park and they want to know, can they put like a soccer net up so they can kick the ball around and their mom and dad can be with them in a sort of safe environment.
Yeah, they've already put
that's basically what we're looking at. From my understanding, and that's the outreach. And
they've already put a lacrosse goal in there and they practice shooting.
I mean, but I'm also thinking about the future and thinking about what we discussed many months ago about Brook Road in terms of this park will never, we hope, will not be developed into something with lights and more activity. Okay.
That's not even being
just so that the residents are informed and kept informed, it would be really important.
Yep, I can let you know, the woman who approached me with this idea has been going around the neighborhood. She may or may not have stopped at your house, and I'm told there's a petition going around, but I haven't seen it yet. But what I was asked for was a couple of soccer nets, and in fact, she had said that she had some funding or had some donated to her if she could have a place to put them. So it was just a matter of putting some soccer nets.
Right. Just as long as we're all kept informed and up to date, that would be really important.
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And the Parks and
Myrna, can I just throw something in there? I mean, we meet monthly with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council, which is really geared for considering things like this, and not to circumvent that council. I'd really like to see any kind of discussions brought to that council for their opinion and their feedback so that they can bring it to the Board of Trustees. And if families do want to get involved in sort of talking about ideas and concepts, would really encourage that to take place through that body of residents who are volunteering their time to do such things.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And those meetings are open to the public, yeah?
Yes, open to the public.
Gonna go with Karen Sullivan.
I have to I'm vertically challenged, so I just need to okay. Karen Sullivan, 66 Soundview Drive. So first, I just wanted to say, on March 28th, we had an incident up on Soundview Drive with some smash and grabs, and windows were broken and things were taken out of cars. But I'm coming here because I want to publicly commend you, Mayor Grant and Kathy Ann, because we had contacted them and you guys were very responsive, and Code was very responsive as well in putting up extra patrols in the neighborhood. So we are so grateful for that. And, you know, hopefully we won't have any more incidents, but everyone was just so attentive and on point, and we felt much better, you know, within the days leading up, you know, after these incidents happened. So I just wanted to publicly thank you guys for just being so responsive and for helping us.
You're welcome. Thank you for saying that.
I think you pretty much beat me to what I was going to say, but Bob Gross, 204 Michigan Avenue. I wanted to thank the mayor and Deputy Mayor Kathy Ann for all you guys are doing to try and keep Code together. I can't imagine what you know, extra amount of work that all that adds up to. I'm a member of the Recreation Committee, and we had a big discussion, especially about the Village Center and the challenges down there. It's kind of it's an open area that's like unpatrolled. I don't know how to put it, but it's open to anyone who may want to wander in there. Some people that wander in there are not exactly of the best character. So we're talking about trying to mitigate that, and I offer my 2 cents to whatever I can, however I might be able to help with any of that stuff. But my thanks.
Steve Velasquez, 208 East Broadway. This is to Kathy Ann. You had mentioned Brook Street. When you contract for the speed camera lighting, if you could possibly go with the newer version where when you're going down the hill, if you exceed the speed limit, it would come up red, kind of give the visual to slow them down.
Okay.
And as well on East Broadway, if you could maybe make that change in the future sometime. Doesn't have to be there, but whenever.
Yeah, there was a unit we were looking at. It was the latest and greatest according to the email that I was sent, and Steve had looked into that and got some pricing. We're still at that stage. I can look. I didn't know that was a possibility, so I'll look and see if that's an option on that unit, and if not, we can look at others. But so you're saying if the speed limit that you set, if it exceeds, it blinks a certain
It'll
color?
blink in a red color or you know, a more visual color that people will know that they're doing
Yep.
something wrong.
I believe our trailer does that
okay.
currently.
The other question was for Steve Laus. You had mentioned that they did the replanting along the hillside. I was wondering if you could possibly, since it's not completed yet, if they could put up some type of deer fencing. I know the deer on my property eat everything, and I would hate to see those be wasted and just destroyed. So if possible. And the last thing I had was, you had mentioned the tennis courts, and I was hoping that possibly maybe this year or whenever they do open, that those could be available to residents on the 4th of July, that they could sit in there, only because I know with my mother-in-law, there's no way to get her down to East Beach, and if we had a space up there that people could go in and clean up after themselves, it would be helpful for the community. So thank you.
I'm not sure it'll be ready for the 4th of July this year.
Yep.
No, when it's ready.
But absolutely, no problem.
Thank you very much to all the trustees. And
Thank you,
Mayor.
Stephen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Arthur?
Arthur Epp, 206 East Main. I actually could speak for 20 minutes, but I'm going to spare you and give you the Cliff Notes. What happened at the April 3rd meeting is our mayor invited the community to bring forth feedback on possibly changing our government in subtle ways. I considered this a gift, and I considered this a generational opportunity to empower citizens and to make things a little bit better. The first issue, moving elections from June to March. I wholeheartedly say that we have to keep them in June. By dialing them back to March, we might preempt a handful of high school students who turn 18 the ability to vote in that June election or March election, as it would be. I believe that our teenagers are less indoctrinated in the ways of the past than we, and the future is more about them than us. So I believe we need to embrace each and every one of them.
Michael, is that your wife calling you? She's like, where in heck's name are you?
We need to embrace each and every one of them and bring them into the electoral process, because they have so much to offer and probably an outside looking in viewpoint. And also our senior citizens, if there's cold, rain, and snow, might find it more difficult to make it to the polls in March than they would prospectively in June. So my vote there is please keep it in June. The next matter.
Can I just quickly respond to that matter? All of that's not going to be up to this board or any board, as post-election. This is going to be up to the committee at the task force of residents, which I was speaking about before, which is open to people who are interested in discussing these matters. Any resident, Art. So
I'm not here all the time. This is my opportunity to give this information. And I'm sure it wouldn't happen with your subcommittee, but often things get tabled with such committees.
I'm with you, Arthur. I would not want to walk the streets in February, January for a March election.
Okay,
Okay, let's
issue.
stay on point, please.
Okay, next issue, I'm going to try to stay on a roll and get it done. 2 or 4 year terms. I thought about it for hours, and I vote wholeheartedly for 4-year terms. Among other things, there's the learning curve issue. If we have a 24-month term, someone might spend as much as a full year in their learning curve, and then by the time they hit their stride, we're going to ask that trustee to go through a re-election process. I prefer that we minimize that learning curve per the time of the term and extend it to 4 years. And there's also this phenomenon in Port Jefferson Village that when we have 2-year terms, we tend to spend up to 6 months of them engaged in a re-election process regarding strategy meetings, fundraising events, debates. That's up to 25% of a term can be distracted by re-election. I prefer that we go 4 years to minimize that to 12.5%. Now, the next issue. Barbara Ransom, the Easter Bunny, AKA, at the last meeting, suggested something that was plausible and it was rational, the idea of this counterbalance of having term limits, prospectively, too. I thought about that, and my judgment on that is I don't want term limits. I want the people empowered to say when someone stays and when someone goes. Plus, there's also the circumstance we could have a superstar trustee, and they could be in the last year of their term becoming, in effect, a lame duck, and the person waiting in the wings to replace them, a novice, might not be nearly as gifted and capable of giving an elite level of service to the community as they. So I would prefer to keep that open-ended. Yet, I want to do something to counterbalance, and it's something that's sort of radical. And what I want to do, I want to maintain elections in the village every year, and I want to have 4-year term limits, or rather 4-year terms. So the way I figured we can do this is expand the board by 2, add 2 new trustees to the mix, so we become a village of 6 trustees and 1 mayor. From what I understand, the incorporated village of Patchogue has exactly that. And from what I recollect, I believe Garden City has 7 trustees and a mayor. I think many people would benefit in that the load that's put upon any single trustee could then be more equally divided. If memory serves me correctly, Trustee Snaden was commissioner of maybe 4 or 5 different departments, like just 2 years ago, which seems to be too much responsibility for one trustee's plate. Above and beyond that, the way it would work prospectively is you have 4 years of an election cycle.
Did you say you could talk for 20, but you weren't going to do that?
Oh, this is the Cliff Notes.
Okay.
Okay.
Just reminding you.
Okay. The four.
I don't know. I mean, like.
Okay. The 4-year election cycle would be as such, prospectively, as I propose. Year 1, 2 trustees, 4-year terms. Year 2, 2 trustees, 4-year terms. Year 3, 2 trustees, 4-year terms. Year 4, purely a mayoral election. The benefit, and no one ever talks about it, but what we have this year and what we've done many times in the past is a controlling interest in this board is available in June, in one fell swoop. It's never been a problem in the past, but I can conceive in the future that it could be. And by going to this system that I propose, it would never happen. I do have other thoughts. I'm not going to mention them, but I will end with one footnote about our mayor's legacy, which now seems appropriate. In many municipalities, you're only given 3 to 5 minutes to make your point, then it's over. For most of this mayor's 14 years, she's allowed citizens open-ended to come up here in this forum and speak. I don't take this for granted at all, and I fully appreciate it as every other citizen should, because to be cut short, to some extent, is to be disempowered. And in this respect, and I hope it's part of your enduring legacy, you've empowered the citizens of Port Jefferson, and I hope that your successor, who I believe is in this room, will also continue with the same policy. I know I've forgotten a few things, but I can fill in the blanks another time.
Now I feel bad for cutting you short. Thank you, Arthur. We planned that. Any further comment? I just have to ask, and with a quick no showing of hands, motion to close the business meeting or meeting at 9:24. All in favor?
Did we need to vote to keep the public hearing open?
Right, no,
Right.
it's-
Just
so
didn't
it's
know
still
if we
open.
needed to. Okay, very good.
I think all of us? No. Thanks for coming tonight, guys. Thanks for sticking it out. It was a long one. Appreciate it.